Hello and welcome inside another edition of the Scorers Table, semi-state preview edition here. Brian Haenchen, Danny Riego here with you. We have a great guest list lined up for tonight, Daniel. I'm pretty excited about this. We have Carley, Barrett, Grace Bordenet of Lafayette Central Catholic, Taylor Von Meter, Kamri, Rowland of Rensselaer Central, Justin Jordan from Whitko, Casey Frost, Joslyn Marshall from Heritage Christian, Angie Hinton from Lanesville is going to help us dissect South Knox and Borden, Emmersen, Kalb, Michael Cave from Northeast Dubois, and then Katie Collignon and Laniah Davis from Marquette Catholic. I think I nailed the pronunciation of the D1.
I would have gone with Dubois. I would have gone with that. I don't know if
I tried to accentuate the French of it earlier on
Lyon,
Danny
France.
made fun of me relentlessly. So I didn't want this to be another Evansville Reeds situation. So anyway, Danny, let's go ahead and bring on our first guest because we're already like 12 minutes behind. It's fine. Joined now by Carley, Barrett, Grace Bordenet. Grace, did I say your last name correctly?
Yes, you did.
Yes, that's great. How are you guys doing?
We're good. How are you?
We're great. How is semi-state prep going now? A couple days in.
It's good. Today we had one of our rough practices, but looking forward to the rest of the week to get that out of the way.
So rough practice, is that by design or is it rough because everybody was just kind of loosey-goosey?
We were loosey-goosey. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. Best to get it out of the way now. So just let's just talk about you guys. What's been clicking with this group, back in Class A? What's distinguished this group and allowed you guys to have the success you've had so far?
I feel like we have pretty good chemistry. I mean, we graduated one senior that played for us last year, so we're kind of used to playing with each other and just getting more comfortable with how everyone plays, and we just really clicked this year, finding our teammates and getting everyone involved.
Grace, what have you seen?
What?
Oh, Grace, what have you seen from this team? Like what's been standing out to you with this group?
Oh, just like how we move the ball together and play together. We all have a lot of energy, and we love picking up our teammates, getting excited, cheering on. Yeah.
Go ahead, Danny.
So, Lafayette Central Catholic, okay. I mean, into the rest of the state, that means success, and it means deep postseason runs. I mean, Craig 4 years ago brought his team to state. Their third weekend team the year after. Last year, you were a second weekend team, and now here you are back in the semi-state. So coming into the season, I mean, that's the expectation, right? I mean, what is it about the culture at LCC and Craig's culture and this basketball team where it is expected for you guys to be at practice on Monday?
Yeah, ever since the summer, we kept talking about state. Like, that's just an expectation for us. Like, that's our goal. So every day at practice, we're like, pretend it's a state game. Like, that's where we want to be.
I mean, we walk into a gym every day with banners all over the walls, all over hanging down, seeing pictures, and that's just where we want to be at the end of the season.
How much does it help now coming in back in Class A, having been to, being regional champions at 2A and then the year before that? Like, how much does that help just in terms of having that experience and just being around the program during that type of success?
It gives us a lot of confidence knowing that we can compete 1A or 2A and like beat the teams that are in either class.
Yeah, we see pretty big competition from going to 2A and then back to 1A. I mean, showing like that we're pretty real stuff, so we can go out there and we can compete with whatever A it is.
Good for you guys. These are good answers. I'm into it. It looks like you guys value pace. Okay, I haven't seen a ton to say that there's a huge sample size. The telecast in the Monroe Central game even talked about how Craig was saying before the game that you guys value pace. You guys are extending in 2-2-1. You guys are running when you have an opportunity to, and you're letting it fly when it's open. I mean, it has to be a really fun style of play to be a part of, right?
Yeah, we're all guards, so it makes it a lot easier to have that up pace. Like when we're in a press or just half court defense, it's just a lot easier for us to go fast.
Yeah. Sometimes too, I mean, that pace, sometimes you want to slow some kids down, particularly the incoming freshmen. Okay. And you have a high trajectory freshman in Brooke Thompson that I'm sure the two of you, elder statesmen of the LCC culture had to kind of take in and slow down a little bit, but just talk about her. I mean, she's jumping off the screen when you watch you guys, when anybody watches you on film. Just talk about her progression and how important she's been to this postseason run.
After our regional win, I texted her and I told her how proud I was of her because from the very first game of the season till now, she just like evaluated her game so much. Like she rebounds more, she drives to the basket more, and she just goes harder on each end of the floor.
She also takes criticism very well. Like if we tell her something, it's like an okay, I got it, and then it's like immediate change.
Yeah.
And she goes out there and she does what we need her to do, and it just helps us in the long run.
No, so is this? I mean, you guys haven't probably accomplished your goal quite yet, right? You probably want next weekend. You want to get through this weekend and into downtown, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
do.
Good for you guys. What has practice been like? Have you guys? Is it 3 scouts? Is it 1 scouts? 1 game at a time? You viewing it as a tournament of 4? I mean, I kind of, the reason why I asked that question isn't just to be a little bit of a cliche. I mean, your coach has been there in these 10, 12, 8 formats, the standalone regional games and things like that. How has your approach been this weekend with preparing for a 2-game semi-state weekend?
We're definitely starting off with looking at our first game because we got to get past our first game to even get to the second game. And we're just preparing for Marquette at the same time. And starting with Elkhart Christian, though, we got to prepare for them to even get to Marquette.
I'll ask one just general question about Elkhart Christian. What jumps out to you guys when you see them on film?
What jumps out to me is probably their offense. We just got to take our defense to them and stop them.
I think we're a very defensive-oriented team, so I think if we play our good defense and we show how we know how to play, I think it'll be a fun game.
Coming up here next, we're going to talk to a couple players from Rensselaer Central, a team that I know that you guys are pretty familiar with. What distinguishes them, and then specifically Kamri Rowland and Taylor Von Meter?
They're strong and they're fast. When they played us, their defense, they took us out of our offense. I mean, their defense is very good. So they're a defensive ordinated team too. So they're a tough team.
They definitely play pretty physical. I mean, physical for girls. They definitely challenged us, and playing them made us better and really made us prepared for what we're going to see in furthermore these couple weekends left.
So Danny and I were texting before the show as we land the plane here, so to speak, but some video from the locker room after games. I guess Coach has the Ric Flair tradition. I have a couple video clips so we can show the folks at home, and then I'd love to just, hear what it's like inside that locker room after games.
It's super exciting. I mean, the atmosphere in there.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The atmosphere in there is just, it's one place to be. I love it. After games, it's always something to look forward to.
So are we going to get a woo here? Like when I turn on the sound and flip the switch, like are we going to get like a really loud woo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Let's hear it.
Sectional champs, give me 2 claps and Ric Flair! Sectional champs, give me 2 claps and Ric Flair!
So has this been the tradition for as long as you guys have been in the program?
Yes.
Yep.
Every game. Yep.
Really?
I love that. Every game, regular season, postseason, doesn't matter.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That's phenomenal. I love that. Well, thank you, Carley and Grace, so much for joining us. Best of luck to you guys on Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, girls.
Thanks, guys. All right, Danny, that was Carley, Barrett, and Grace Bordenet from Lafayette Central Catholic. Give me one quick thought before we move on to Rensselaer Central. Pace.
I mean, I put it in one of my questions. They're the better basketball team when they play in class. Most times they step out on the floor, so they value cramming possessions into the game. And when you play that way consistently throughout the entire year and you practice that way, you get a team like Monroe Central that tries to play at your pace, and it's very, very difficult to do. So they're a very fun watch. Carley's great, by the way. I mean, Carley's great. Brooke is great. I mean, the kids there, they have good players. They say they're all guards, but they're all guards that can dribble, pass, shoot, defend. They have high IQ. Hank, I mean, you had them in the championship game of semi-state weekend since like the beginning of time, and I haven't seen anything on film or heard anything that would make me tell you to back off that. They're very, very good. 2 very heavy favorites there between them and Marquette Catholic going into that Class A semi-state on Saturday. Danny, let's go ahead and let's move to Class 2A. Sheridan 25-1 playing Rensselaer Central 24-2. You and I were texting, I think, during that Rensselaer game a little bit. I was texting to Zach Newby at Lapel just what Rensselaer was able to do against Alexandria and Jacqueline Hosier.
of just, I mean, containing her. I think she finished with 17, 19 points, whatever, but she really had to work for it. And the stat that I just keep going back to is just how difficult it's been for those standouts to get points and to get to their number against Rensselaer Central. It's impressive.
I really like Rensselaer Central. So I watched their game. Oh my gosh. The one against Alexandria. So I watched that one. The first thing I would point out is the small towns bring it, man. They bring it. Like Caston or Caston or however you pronounce it, it might as well have been a home gym for Rensselaer Central. I mean, Alexandria had half their town there. That's a huge fan base following. And I mean, there's a guy in like a green stocking cap that's like standing up. His head was like right in the middle. And I was like, well, there's no place to set a camera. Such an amazing atmosphere. But through all of that, if you could see around the guy's head, like they're good, man. They are good. They're long, they guard, they're shot makers, they're tough, they defend, they take care of the ball. Von Meter's 5'11. Rowland, I think, is like 5'9 or 5'10. Matthews 5'11. Drone is 5'10. Like they have length all the way across. And that, when you couple that with smart decision making and basketball IQ and taking care of it, I mean, we talked about it going into that regional game. Like the team that's going to get Alexandria is going to be the team that values the ball and takes care of the ball and doesn't give them opportunities in live ball turnover to score. And they did. I mean, I don't think I saw a live ball turnover. This is not an exaggeration. I don't think I saw a live ball turnover until the fourth quarter of that game. They just took care of it. They put Von Meter in the middle. They would throw it to her. She never walked. She knew when somebody was right behind her. She was catching, chinning, looking opposite. They weren't trying to get ahead of themselves. Rensselaer Central is very, very good.
And with that, we bring on our guest now, Danny, from Rensselaer Central, Taylor Von Meter, Kamri Rowland. Cam, did I say your name right? Your last name correctly?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, perfect. I apologize for butchering it earlier. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
We're great. So I'll ask you guys the same question I asked them. How have the first couple of days of semi-state prep been going?
I think it's been really good. Just everyone pushing each other. It's been fun practicing against everybody because, you know, everyone wants to be there. Everyone's just trying to just push each other.
Yeah.
That wasn't one of your parents that in the green hat. Do you guys know what I'm talking about, by the way?
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually think that was my brother. So
Of course it was.
he was, I was watching the film and I was like, he was really in the way the entire time.
Well, you got to get him a whistle because he was definitely officiating from the second.
Yeah, he got a little excited for sure.
So I want to start with that regional game because I've seen some of the pictures, everybody packed into the Caston gym. I mean, just what is it like to play in something like that? Like that had to be a blast, right?
It was a lot of fun. I think especially with how small.
Yeah, I think that small gym really helped us.
Yeah, it was
honestly.
it kind of just you make it appreciated the community and stuff coming together and everyone being there for us. It just felt really good running out and seeing everybody there supporting us.
Has that support, has it been pretty consistent for you guys over the course of your careers?
Yeah, I'd say this year definitely. Like every home game we've been to, just the whole gym's just everyone's there. So
yeah, I'd say for I'd say even my freshman year up, I think our community does a really good job at supporting us. So I think that's something we all kind of appreciate a lot.
mm-hmm.
When it came to defending Hosier specifically last week, I'm fascinated at your guys' ability, like Lily Graves earlier in the year, and some of the other kids, Lexi Primus, I think at North Knox too, just your ability to contain those big players and hold them below their season averages. With Hosier specifically, what were you doing to keep her off balance and get her out of her game?
I think a lot of it was breaking down film for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And just we know that she's a really good player, so we had to take away her biggest strength, which I think is driving. So keeping her off the free throw line and things like that. Our coaches did a really good job at just preparing us all week because we knew what we were going into. So
all week we practiced just defending her, and we knew she could shoot, obviously. So just making sure we step out on her too.
Was there an adjustment when she hit the first couple? Because it seemed like your hands were down. You were giving her space. She hits too early. You even dropped down a couple of possessions early. You guys get yelled at for that?
Not really yelled at. We're just getting told to make sure that we do get our hands up for everyone because there was other players that could knock down threes too. So,
yeah, I just think we made those little adjustments that helped us a lot.
Yeah, it was impressive. I was actually more impressed, quite honestly. I mean, the best way to defend Jacqueline Hosier is to take care of the ball on the offensive end. And that was my feeling kind of going into it. There seemed to be a tremendous amount of care with the spacing and the rotations and where you guys were looking in that pressure. Is that scout specific, or can we just not, we just can't odd front press you because you guys take care of it? I mean, which is more true?
I think we we do really good at taking care of the ball, but especially our players, our freshmen that came in, they played really good defense on us all week, pushed us really hard. So then we knew what exactly we were coming into. I'd say even they watched just as much film as we did on them. Everyone just pushed us a lot during practice. I think that helped us the most, honestly.
Yeah, Taylor, you specifically late in that basketball game, I mean, you were gangster. You had the 2 threes, you had the and one, you deflected the ball a couple of times. You're going to be a next level player at UIndy, and your career has been very fun to watch. But I mean, just talk about where does that come from? You just making plays in the last 3 minutes of the game for your team, to whether it's the offensive side or defensive side.
Yeah, I think just going into halftime, we were up by 1, which I think it just a light bulb turned on, for all of us, that we didn't want this season to be over, obviously. So we just all want it so bad. So we just did everything we could to fight back.
And are you guys and I think you guys were backstage when we were kind of talking about the lead in. I was talking about your length. And that's something that, you guys play a 1-2-2 zone. Again, my sample size probably isn't big enough to determine whether that's the identity of your team. But I would suspect that any defense that you play is going to cause problems because you guys are so long. I mean, just talk particularly about that 1-2-2 and you're rotating. You guys seem to have really all bought in and understand the different rotations that are within that defense. And then you guys use length to deflect the basketball. It's a very difficult defense to attack.
We definitely use length in our speed, as an advantage. And we even had to make some adjustments with playing Alexandria. So just, like I said, challenging each other at practice is what makes our defense so good, I think. So
I think when we have our hands up too.
Oh yeah.
It's really hard to get past all of us. And we obviously we rotate well. We're quick enough to get there. So
I think that was what really helped us in the regional game. Was normally we're really aggressive and we foul sometimes, but I think we did a really good job at keeping our hands up, keeping all of them off the free throw line. So I think that's what I was most proud of all of us for.
Yeah.
Before I throw it to Hank and he'll get you out, I just have one more question. And I'm just fascinated by this because now, I mean, I'm just trying to play catch up on your season. And, I'm going through this whole thing about how talented you are and how long you are and how good your team is. When you guys were in your initial goal setting session at the beginning of the season, I mean, have we reached that point yet? I mean, have you accomplished your goals yet, or are we still going? Talk about that.
We're still going.
Yeah.
We knew this was the team that we have right now that could get us there. So, I mean, we obviously had every single goal that we wanted. We have sectionals, and then we just have further on conference.
I think we're just taking everything step by step. I think that helps a lot. Just taking every goal step by step. Once we hit those goals, it's we're not done yet. So I think that's what we focus on the most.
It's got to be, I suppose I get why you picked this year as the year. I mean, just the sectional grind you guys have had to go through, right? With West Lafayette kind of at the height of its powers. Benton Central was really good there for a while too. I mean, just paying your dues in that, was it easy to keep everybody together knowing that this is what's at the end of the tunnel?
I think it especially motivated us because we obviously lost last year. And that was a tough loss for all of us. But I think now it's just this is it for our 2 senior starters. Then we have Brooke coming off the bench and our 2 managers. It's just everyone wants to win for each other. So I think that's our biggest thing.
You guys mentioned that was interesting. So your freshman team last week, they're studying the film on Alexandria and all that. So that's the same thing this week with Sheridan then? Have they just been drilling Sheridan and then, I guess just how you approach semi-state prep?
Yeah, I think we're all buying into it. So they know their role is to get us ready for it, and they do an amazing job at that. So
is that something new that you guys installed this year, or has that been tradition during your time?
Just every game, we usually have them act as other players and get us ready for that. So
Same film study and everything with them.
Yeah.
Looking at Sheridan, obviously the big piece for them is Kenzie Garner. What jumps out to you when you see her, and how familiar are you guys with her game?
I think like what jumps out to me especially is like you think like you say stuff about our length, and she's a big guard, can go left, she's good at finishing and shooting. So I think just her length and her ability and skill, like that jumps out at me. So
Taylor, what do you see, as you guys look to try and guard her?
I think she's similar to what we just faced with Jacqueline. Like she can do it all. So just shutting her down is going to be our main focus. And obviously there's others that we need to just focus on too. But making sure that she doesn't get to the rim and getting her shots off that she normally does, I think that's going to be a big focus for us.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask too about the sophomore you guys have, Courtney Matthews, having a great season for you guys. How was she fit into the lineup, and what have you seen from that kid?
She's just all over on defense. Like you guys obviously if you've seen our games, like she
can shut someone down.
Yeah, she's up top, just getting all the deflections, getting all the 50-50 balls. She just goes all out, and then
she can handle the ball pressure too.
Oh yeah, on the offensive end, she just runs our offense really well, I think. Mm-hmm. Just gets everyone moving, keeps the energy really high. So she definitely fits in with us, just like really perfect, honestly.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk with us. Best of luck on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys play.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Taylor Von Meter, Kamri, Rowland joining us here on the Scores here for Rensselaer Central. Danny, your thoughts on that game? That's going to be a really fun game.
It is going to be a fun game. I think the what to watch is how similar. I mean, Taylor kind of alluded to it, that there's some similarities between Hosier and Garner. Be interesting to see if they have the same game plan implemented with how they guard. If they play the flat 1-2-2 and stay connected to Garner, if they give the role players for Sheridan a little bit more credit. That's my big what to watch, is the similarities, because on the surface, you would think the similarities were endless. Without deep film study, I mean, they're the ones that are going to need to answer it. And time will tell if that game plan would work. But they're tough because they didn't have to junk Hosier. And what I mean by junk Hosier is not like they don't have like one defender. She's our best defender, and she's going to guard the best player and follow her around wherever she goes. They added levels of intricacy to their defensive rotation by communicating as to where Hosier was. Hosier at times, I think, in that basketball game, and it's not a shot at them. It's just one of those things that I noticed. Sometimes the player movement necessarily wasn't there for Alexandria. So I think one thing to watch is to see how much they move Kenzie Garner around in different spots to see if they can make a mistake, because she's a killer, right? I mean, if you make a mistake and you give her space, it's on the net and it's 3 points and you're running back the other way. So I think that's a really interesting watch to see if they stay in that 1-2-2 and talk through. And I think from a Sheridan perspective, where is Garner? Is she going to play point? Are they going to start her on the baseline and exit cut her? Are they going to run her through the middle after the first entry? Those are examples of player movements that I think can add levels of detail to your defensive rotation that you can get lost in. And if you make a mistake, like I said, Garner's going to make you pay. She made Lapel pay for 40.
She's such an efficient shooter too. I'm really interested. And what's unique about Sheridan, unique from Alexandria, is they have some depth in scoring too. Like Kenzie's going to get a lot of it, but I talked to Kenzie for a story that's coming out here this week. I think maybe by the time you watch this, but anyway, her big thing is passing. Like she just as soon pass it. Like she's been pretty open about, I wish I could get the all-time assist record. She's chasing the all-time scoring record right now, but it's the assist that she's most proud of, and what she really takes pride in is her passing as a prowess. And I mean, she's got some kids around her: Cecilia Tim, Brielle Garner, Shelby Eaton, Nova Cross. Nova Cross had a big game for them, I think, last weekend. So getting those kids involved, I'm really curious to see how that impacts what Rensselaer does. But then you mentioned that they didn't really have to junk Hosier to begin with, so that kind of changes it. And then their ability at Rensselaer to mix up zone defenses and how that's going to keep Sheridan off balance is fascinating. And then I think the one area that's really easy to overlook, at least for me, is Rensselaer shooters. I mean, they got some firepower over there. And I mean, how does Sheridan contend with that? How does that wear and tear impact a team over the course of a game? Like, there's just so many that of the 2A matches, that one really fascinates me just in terms of all the moving parts that come with it.
And I don't remember watching the Alexandria Rensselaer game thinking or questioning the quality of looks that they were getting. I think that's what you get when you get. I mean, I was very complimentary of Taylor Von Meter and how she played in the last 3 minutes of that game. But they don't take a lot of bad shots. I mean, it's just they pass the ball and they go from good shot to better shot to best shot most possessions. And when you do that and you're balanced, you're efficient. And you know how I feel about efficiency. Efficiency is the new volume, right? I mean, and that's how you become a good offensive basketball team. But if you haven't seen Taylor Von Meter, guys, I'm talking to the audience here, and also you, Hank, if you haven't seen Taylor Von Meter, Taylor Von Meter on the same floor, and I know Rowland is leading them in scoring, and it's just maybe a personal preference thing. Maybe her game just fit my eye, but to see Von Meter on the same floor as Garner is worth the price of admission. It's going to be fantastic theater.
I'm really looking forward to that. That's where I'm going to be on Saturday is Frankfurt for that game between the Bombers and the Blackhawks. Another quick note, too, we mentioned the section. I mean, just what that sectional was for the past couple of years that Rensselaer was in. I mean, that was insane. It was Twin Lakes when they had when they were loaded. You had West Lafayette loaded.
Nickerson and Bousman were the names.
Yeah, that's right. Like there were so many teams in there, and that was not unlike Section 8 and 4A, where it's just like, why do we have to stick all these teams together? So it's fun to see that the powers have shifted, some teams have moved around, and finally we get to see Rensselaer go on a run. And it's like the girl said, like you could see it coming, and it's like finally we get to see it and they're making it happen. But that's gonna be a fascinating semi-state semifinal on Saturday. Sure. Danny, I'm gonna move us over now up north into Logansport, where we're gonna have Whitko taking on Eastside. We're joined now by head coach Justin Jordan from Whitko. Justin, how you doing, sir?
Doing good, man. Appreciate you having me. Danny, what's up, baby?
What's going on, man?
Good to see you, man.
I saw your name on the I saw your name. So Hank like blocks the show and then he sends it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, unbelievable. Now I gotta talk to this fool.
Yeah, man. Me and Danny go way back, man. It's always good seeing you, man.
He didn't name drop. He didn't tell me you guys knew each other. I thought that I was going in here blind. Like I'm meeting you for the first time. He's meeting you for the first time, and he's been holding out on me.
He probably just didn't put two and two together. Danny's a busy dude, man.
He is. That's all we hear about sometimes. No. So Justin, first of all, congratulations on the run and to still be playing at this point in the season, man. Just tell us about your team and some of the kids. You know, we have some names specifically we want to ask you about, but I'd just love to hear your thoughts on this group of girls and what's allowed them to have the success that they've had.
Yeah, man, it's been a storybook season for us. It's been the first time we've won sectional for the girls regional, so it's just been an amazing season so far. I got two seniors that have been with me since I started. That've gone through the ringer. When I first took the program over 5 years ago, we'd only won 2 games my first year. My second year we won 6. So progressively we've gotten better. And now I got a couple of other girls that have stepped in. I got some girls that can play. Going into the season, I wanted to load up our schedule, play some 4A teams, some other teams just to see how we do, and then kind of prepare us to see how we do when we get into the playoffs. So it's paying off for us right now.
You mentioned beefing up the schedule and that, or I guess let's start with the 2-win season. I mean, just how do you build a program up from that? Like, you know, when you take over to get them from that to 21 wins now in your 5th season, I mean, how did you go about that process?
Yeah. After my first season, man, I wouldn't tell fellas, I really wanted to quit. I started off in the AAU. I started off in AAU where I'm spoiled. I got girls that are, you know, go anywhere from D1 to D2 to NAIA. So I went from that, and I didn't even know where the hell Whitko was when I took the job. So when I got the job, you know, I'm going down. It's called State Road 14. There was a llama in the road, and I'm like, what did I get myself into? So getting there, and then my first year was COVID was still going on, so I only had 2 or 3 kids that were even coming to workouts. Oh, wow. So it was just a complete rebuild. A lot of patience. I had some hard-working kids when I first got going, but we really just weren't that talented. I had one girl that could really do everything, and she wasn't the best athlete, but she had to come out of her comfort zone, and she ended up being my first 1,000-point scorer. She graduated last year, but it was a process, and then I poured into the feeder system out there, and we've got that rolling right now. So, but it's just been a process. I've learned a lot from it. It's tested my patience.
Hank, if you're not rooting for him after that llama story, I don't know what else
That's just
it's gonna
phenomenal.
take, man.
I want him to win it all now.
That's unbelievable. Justin, talk about the pieces. Start with the Stonebreaker sisters. They're obviously a big part of what you do, some continuity there. I mean, just talk about the different things that they bring.
Yeah, so Jama and Reese, they got motors that just don't stop. They came over last year from Lakeland Christian. Jama came over as a freshman, and then Reese was a sophomore. And I had him in the summertime, and we played a few different places. I just didn't really know how good they were at that time because it's summer ball, so you just never know. And then last year, towards the end of the season, Jama really just started to take games over and put us on her back. And Reese last year took more of a back seat to a bunch of the girls. And this summer, going into it, I kind of told Reese like she's capable of the same things her sister is doing, and this year she's been doing it. There might be some games where one of them might not be scoring, but they'll have 4 or 5 assists, 6 or 7 rebounds, a couple deflections. They're all over the place. The only thing that drives me nuts with them is those girls gamble on D. And if we were in Vegas together, they losing their money within the first 10 minutes because those girls gamble on D because they read the passing lane so well. But sometimes I got to let it go, but sometimes I'm losing my mind.
Go ahead, Dan.
But they do get you 6.9 steals per game as a group.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Don't be too mad at them because you're turning them over.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times in these runs, it kind of goes back to senior leadership. You got a couple of seniors on the roster. I was actually just looking their names up right now. Harrison and Phillips, I believe they are, right? I mean, it's just you always have to have seniors in these deep runs that can kind of hold you together. Talk about those pieces.
Yeah, I'll start off with Brazier first. Brazier's someone she's been dealing with Crohn's disease for the last 4 years, so she's missed a handful of games. She probably would have been on pace for 1,000 had she not missed so many games because she can really shoot the basketball. But she's somebody that's been through it. Again, she came in as a freshman, really playing out of position. I had to play her as a point guard. She's really a 2, her and Adriana Phillips. But she's just resilient, tough kid, just been through it all. And then Adriana's another one. Adriana can shoot the ball from 30 feet out. I know when teams scout us, they have to guard her probably at the volleyball line because if she's open, I encourage her to shoot it because when she gets her feet set, she can really shoot the basketball. And she's also just a competitor, fierce competitor. She got a technical a couple years ago for cussing out a girl, and I'm like, listen, you can cuss her out, but you got to do that under your breath or something. You can't just be getting technicals for that. But she's the ultimate competitor, man. And what those two bring for us is night in and night out is you just can't teach it. The girls love both of them, and their leadership's been amazing this year.
I just have a question and it comes from a personal place. The transition obviously from summer basketball to high school basketball. I mean, a little different in the IHSAA. I mean, you say things like, talking smack to another kid and getting a technical foul. That's like breakfast in summer ball.
Right.
So just talk about how your transition has been. Obviously you cut your teeth in a big club and now, you're having success at Whitko and find yourself in the third weekend. Just talk about what that's been like for you. I'm actually very curious as to what your answer would be here.
Yeah. So I always have to reprogram my brain, man. And you know how it is. You go from, again, my girls at Whitko, I have some talent, but at the end of the day, you go with, now you got a Joslyn Bricker or an Ariana Simmons or Ariana Wiggins. So now you're like, all right, what are you doing? Or actually, I'm sorry, that's what you can do. So I always got to reprogram my brain and bring it back to, this is what my girls are capable of doing. But at the end of the day, Danny, you know this better than I do. We shouldn't have to tell those girls to be playing hard when your parents are spending X amount of dollars. You better have your behind diving on that ground and doing what the coach says, or you're not gonna play. I don't know. We know, and Danny, you know how I am, and I know how you are. I don't play that. You gotta be ready to go.
Oh my gosh, I'm rooting for Justin and Whitko so hard now. Justin, East Side. I'll admittedly don't know a ton about East Side. They don't have stats up, but I recognize the name from volleyball. I think they've had some success there, so they've at least had postseason success in other sports. As you've gotten into the scout and had a chance to see them, what jumps out to you when you see East Side?
They're tough. They do a lot of the same things we do. For us, it's gonna be like looking in a mirror. They pick up full court, man to man. They're gritty. They're gonna have their whole community behind them. It's gonna be a dogfight. And and they're older. They got 3 seniors that start, and then they got 2 talented sophomores that start for them. So it's going to be a dogfight for us. And like I said, they do some of the same things we do. Their coach runs a lot of really nice sets in the half court, and he switches up defenses every other quarter. So for us preparing this week, I've had to do a lot of things differently preparing for them, because they just some of the stuff you just can't. I mean, it's just hard to prepare for. So it's gonna be a tough matchup for us. And then obviously, if we win that one, whoever wins that one, that second game is gonna be even tougher. So
That's right.
You mentioned too strengthening the schedule. Just to contextualize that, you're playing Columbia City, you're playing Fort Wayne Northrop, Northwestern is traditional power, and Huntington North, the 4A team, but Fort Wayne Northrop again. My gosh, just so many of these powerhouse teams, lures as well. Just how does that help you then when you get in deep in the section, when you're playing a Bluffton and Bremen, 2 20-win teams back to back? I mean, how did that set your group up to have the success that you've had these past 2 Saturdays?
it was huge, man. We faced adversity early in the year. Columbia City is freaking good. Addie Baxter is the real deal. Addie Baxter lives in Whitko's district. Every time I see her, I'm like, what it could have been. My goodness. But she's a kid I've known for a long time. I'm super happy for her and Coach Shear over there. But it's one of them things, man, where it's just special, man. And I'm sorry, can you revert back to that question too for me?
Yeah, just how does that experience, like being tested during the regular season, putting the girls through such a ringer of a schedule, like how did that prepare them to pull out these close games against 2 20-win teams?
Yeah, so like I said, we faced some adversity, and there's been a few games. There was a handful of games this year where we were down first half, second half, and we are a really good second half team. Bluffton, we were down, I think 3 or 4 at halftime, and then this past weekend we were down 4 or 5. This past weekend, Bremen did a really good job killing us on the glass, and I basically told the girls, you know, I said this is about probably a C- for us. I said all their points are coming from the second chance shots. You guys, that's effort. And then we locked it up in the second half, and we hit some big shots. And then the same thing with the Bluffton game. I thought with Bluffton, most of their offense came from second chance shots as well. I thought for us when we going into that game, though, if you look at us and look at their schedule, I just didn't feel like their schedule was even comparable to what we had faced. So I had a lot more confidence going into that game, and we took care of business. But it was. I'm not gonna say it was here saying it was easy, but it was a battle, and we ended up coming out of it.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, man. I hope the llama is doing well.
Amazing story.
Best selection on Saturday. I'm looking forward. I'm going to be up there in Logansport for the second game. I'm going to kick up there early and catch you guys too. So best of luck to you, man.
I appreciate it, fellas, and have a good one. Danny, good seeing you, man. And Brian, appreciate it.
That's mutual.
Absolutely. Take care.
See you, man.
Justin Jordan, head coach at Whitko. That was amazing.
The llama story. I mean, and we're skipping. I mean, there's no continuity to this comment because it was in a 3A, 4A interview, but now we've talked about an ostrich and a llama in about 20. In about a 20-minute span.
Time is a flat circle and everything's interwoven. And by the way, I mean, just to give credence to what he's done, these are the most wins that they've had since they won 21 and 16 and 17. Since then, it's been single digit. And then once Justin got there, it's 2 and 20, 6 and 17, 9 and 14, and now 19 and 4, all leading into this season where they're playing for a semi-state championship at 21 and 4. Just a remarkable rise to glory from, I don't know where Whitko is. Personally, I'm still not entirely clear on that. And seeing Llamas in the road too, now playing for a chance to go to Cambridge Fieldhouse, that's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, that's a good dude. So, I mean, if you don't have a horse in the race, root for that guy because he's a good guy and he's helped a lot of kids over the years. I can personally attest to that.
Absolutely. I don't know why, but I was surprised that he knew you. Like he was excited to see you. I didn't realize there was a connection between you guys coming in. That's pretty awesome. Danny, let's go. I keep saying go down somewhere. We're going to stay in 2A, but we're going to move south now because we're going to be joined here by Casey Frost, Joslyn Marshall here, Brownstown.
There's another one that knows me.
Oh, that's great. You're just Mr. Popular, this guy. Brownstown Central 22-5, Heritage Christian 14-2. That's the noon game at Jasper. Danny, why don't you give us an opening thought while I get the interview ready?
Well, Heritage Christian. I mean, didn't Lafayette Central Catholic get in here and say that they walk into a gym and there's all these banners and pictures and it's no dissimilar there? I mean, we've got the Kelly Ferris years, you have the Ty Harris years, and that's super disrespectful to people like Claire Freeman, Emily Anderson, Darby Forsman. I mean, they've been loaded, and that is in the culture there. To see them in the third weekend is really kind of a romantic thought for me, because when I was first getting into coaching, Heritage Christian was it, man. I mean, that was it. I mean, I saw them play. I mean, they would have teams from Chicago, like the #1 team in Illinois. And you see this a lot now. These cross-state games are happening a lot now, but they used to be very regular in that gym. But, you know, one of the kids that we're having on, I mean, I remember her older sister, and this is Joslyn Marshall and Casey Frost. I mean, I watched them on film. These kids are tough. And I think Heritage Christian being there, I think, is maybe just a revival, I think, of some of that, some of those romantic thoughts that we've had and known. And for the people that have been around for, you know, in those late 2010s, you know, that for the Ty Harris years and even earlier in the Kelly Ferris years. It's really great to see Heritage Christian in the third weekend.
And with that, we go ahead and bring on Joslyn Marshall and Casey Frost of Heritage Christian. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Danny, you want to say hello to your friends?
Hello, friends. Josh, how's it going?
It's good. How are you?
It's been a long time.
Congratulations on making it to the third weekend. Let's start with that regional championship game. I was texting with Coach about the game. I mean, to hold a team to 14 points, wasn't it, in the first half? I mean, just what were you doing defensively that was working so well?
Oh, go ahead. All right. I think that really just staying on the same page as a team on defense is really big for us. I think sometimes we can get off track, and when we're not playing as a unit, that's where we fall short. But when we're all together and on the same page, I think we're pretty tough on D.
I think also just like throughout the week, we were like preparing a lot and just talking through everything. So like day by day in practice, we just took it as it was. And if anybody was confused, we'd address it the next day and make sure that everybody knew exactly what they were supposed to be doing and their roles on the team, and make sure nobody was doing too much or somebody was doing too little, but we were all doing the same amount and knew what we were supposed to be doing.
Defense has kind of been this group's calling card throughout the year, just, you know, with the few number of points you guys have been giving up. Just how have you seen it grow? Like, obviously we see the numbers, we see it play here and there, but just how have you guys seen it inside the room progress from day one to now on the defensive end?
I think that we do have some younger players and some really significant roles. As you guys know, our leading scorer, Riley, she's a really good player. Freshman, which is a big role coming in, especially in the postseason tournament. I mean, all the nerves. And so she's really been a good aspect, especially with her length on D. I think just we've grown from the beginning of the season just by meshing as a team. I think that plays a big role. And again, once we're all on the same page and just communicating, I think that really plays a big role.
Yeah.
Let's stay with Riley Johnson, and I'm a big Riley Johnson fan, so I'll preface my question with that statement here. But you know, sometimes it needs older players, senior leaders, people that have been around there to accept the fact that a freshman is going to lead you in scoring, and to accept the shot volume and accept the freshman mistakes and things like that. I would ask for each of you to just talk about her progression. I think she has a super high ceiling. She seems like a really good player. Obviously, the obvious, which is that, you know, she shoots the ball well with a ton of length. Her mechanics are really good, but just talk about her progression. Maybe something that we can't see on film just through the talent. Just talk about, you know, where she's been and how she's gotten there.
Like me personally, I feel like at the beginning of the season, like I would say she was like a little more reserved in terms of just like talking to all the girls and stuff. And we all knew that Riley was extremely talented. You could tell from just like immediately from the summer, just like playing at different events like at IWU and stuff. So we knew she was talented, but just like kind of getting to know her and like meshing. And if you know Riley, you know she's very like spunky and she loves to talk and she's very funny and has lots of energy. So I think just like getting to know a different side of her and like watching her step outside of her shell and kind of like get to see who she really is. And I feel like that's helped her in basketball because we're able to trust her more. She's able to trust us more just because we know each other on a deeper, more personal level outside of just basketball.
Yeah, and I would just add to that what you said earlier about how she is leading us in scoring and she's the youngest player on the team, and how like as seniors, like we need to be accepting because that's the only way that she's going to reach her potential. And I think that as seniors, I know
speaking from Casey's perspective also, like, I think it's been a huge burden lift off of us two, her coming in and just being super talented and being able to score. I think that is just another offensive threat that we really did need. And especially in postseason, it's going to be really dangerous to have her on our side. So.
And that stuff isn't always met with open arms too. I mean, I compliment that, and we'll see where her trajectory lands her, but it's not going to be without, crossing over kind of this Marshall Frost era, if you will. I mean, she'll go through different ones as you guys graduate and move on and play your next level ball or end up wherever you guys are going to end up. But at the same time, like when the going gets tough, it seems like it's you guys. And I'm going to date back to the Roncalli game. You guys were playing at a home. It was a boys-girls doubleheader. You were en route to dropping down 20 in that game. Coach calls a timeout, brings you over, and Joss said, like, it was you who they ran like out of in an ATO situation, just a pin down, got you a post, got you a layup, and then the very next time, seems like it was a normal pattern in your continuity, but then immediately put you in dribble handoff. Late in that game when you guys were making your comeback, Casey, it was you that hit the 2 left wing threes in that basketball game to help cut it to 4 after being down 20. So it's still you guys, right? So just talk about the balance between, being the senior leader and then bringing her along and just making winning plays to get into the third weekend.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think that because she is like such an offensive threat, and I think that how like the strength that we bring is just the experience that we have. I remember a regional where it was a winnable game, but the nerves, they just overtake you, and the nerves they get, especially first game regionals, never been to regionals before. And so it's cool to be able to like share with her as a freshman, like, hey, you're a really good scorer. And in the beginning of this game, if it seems like nothing's going your way, it's okay. Like it's just another game. In the end, there's a lot at stake, yes, but you played this game before. So I think it's cool to be able to like know what it feels like and know what she's feeling, and just be able to encourage her in that way.
Yeah, I also think like a big part of what our coaches say every single day at practice and every game is know your role and do your job. Like when you go back and watch film, our coaches will leave comments, and one of our assistant coaches, he's always like, do your job, know your person, do this. So I think it's just knowing your role, and throughout the season, everybody's figured out what their role is going to fit into that. And like some games, like Riley might not be hitting, but Joslyn is. So Joslyn's going to be our leading scorer for that game. Or maybe they're not hitting. So then I have to step up and I have to score. So having the 3 of us plus Trinity sometimes being able to rotate through, and like if we need a little help here or there. I mean, there's been games this season, like you mentioned the Roncalli game, all 4 of us were in double figures that game. And I mean, we lost, but just knowing like how to rotate through that and understanding our roles has helped us like bond. And Jocelyn and I talked before the postseason about how to like kind of calm those nerves, especially the people who have never been in that kind of situation before. So before every game, like all of us girls just huddle, and the first thing that we say is take a deep breath. So, and I think that's been really helpful. So we take a deep breath, and then we just kind of talk through what we're going to do and say that we're going to be fine, and we trust one another. And it's worked so far. So we'll see.
And Casey, it was a beautiful segue, because the next player that I was going to ask about was Trinity Taylor. I mean, she's pulling down 13 rebounds a game. Like that's a joke. Okay. I mean, an absolute joke, right? So she has to be a huge reason why you're here, right?
Yeah.
You go.
Okay. She kind of cracks me up because we'll be sitting at school and she'll just be like on max preps, and she's like, she is so competitive, and she's like, I have to beat this person right in front of me, and I have to be better and do better. And she's like, recently, I can't remember the last game where she got under like 19 rebounds. I mean, it's insane.
Oh my God.
I don't know how she does it. I watch film and like I see these teams and I'm like, yeah, they're decent rebounders, but like nobody compares to Trinity in my opinion. And the amount of rebounds this girl gets to give us second chance opportunities is insane. So, I mean, credit to her for a lot of the points that we score because we wouldn't be anywhere without her.
Yeah. And I also, just adding to that, I think it's insane when you go back and watch. Like, people don't realize the little stuff, but you realize how many second chance threes or points that we get off of her getting the rebound like 3 or 4 times. And that's a big like role in us winning. So that wouldn't happen and the outcome wouldn't be the same without her rebound. So
that's very cool. Hank's going to bring you into some weekend specific and semi-state specific questions, but just a global question before I throw it back to the three of you. I talked about the tradition at Heritage Christian. Okay. Is that something that I just made up, or or the echoes of Doc Richards and Rick Reisinger? Is that stuff real? Do you walk into it and know in the back of your mind that Kelly Ferris won 4 state championships and didn't lose a high school game in there, and that Ty Harris is just running through the WNBA right now as one of the 10 best point guards? You guys play in a museum. You really, really do. And the expectations within that gym are different than they might be in other gyms. Is that something that I've just made up, or is that real?
It's definitely real. I think something that our coach always tells us in practice, if we're having a slacking practice or whatever, and we're kind of taking the moment for granted, it's the end of the season and you really can't do that. Coach will be like, look up on that wall over there, guys. So, do you really want your picture up on that wall? And I think that just kind of puts it all back in perspective. Like, if you don't give it your all, you could be done. And that's a missed opportunity. So I think that it is definitely real, and it's something that is on our minds a lot.
I drive into school every single morning and I look at our gym and all it is girls basketball, girls basketball, girls basketball, girls basketball. And then I walk into the gym and all I see is pictures of all the past state champions. And I think us having Claire Freeman and Cassie Wiseman, used to be Freeman, they were our coaches our freshman and sophomore year. So like they kind of instilled in us like the winning mentality, and they would talk to us about some things that like Rick would put them through and their kind of experiences. So like us being that young and having that kind of exposure to people who have been in our place and know what they're talking about, I think was really helpful. That like our junior and senior year, we were able to pass on to the lower classmen that weren't able to experience Cassie and Claire.
How much does it help for you two, having played soccer, state championship team your freshman year, right? Then semi-state again this year. Just how much does having that experience, how does that translate over to basketball, and how much does it help just kind of having that in your back pocket?
It is definitely a tremendous help. Even from the not playing side, just the mental side, I think knowing we've been to a regional, and then we've been to a regional in soccer, both in basketball. I think it just really helps to have that experience, because it's like, I've been here before. I know what it feels like, and I know that I have the tools to do my part and contribute, and that I can help my team even in this big environment when it feels like everybody's watching you and everybody's eyes on you. So I think it's really good to have that experience.
Yeah. Also, just like in soccer, like to us, like soccer is not our main sport. Like we don't take it as seriously. So, which we still take it seriously, but it's not like basketball. We are like extremely competitive. So like soccer was kind of our time to just be like, enjoy it, have fun. And I think having that mentality has helped us in basketball, because it's like, it's our last year. So we're just trying to enjoy it while we can.
Looking ahead now to Brownstown Central, it seems like on some level they're kind of a mirror image to you guys, a team that really relies on defense, rebounds the ball, keeps teams scoring in the 40s, whatever. What do you guys see as you start scouting them, or have you seen as you start scouting them?
Well, we've already started scouting them a lot. That's something about me and Casey. We watch a lot of film. And they're a really great team. I noticed they're very quick, and they do play as a unit, offensively and defensively. They're constantly moving the ball. And so I think it is definitely going to be a tough challenge, but this is a big opportunity, and we're going to give it all we got. So,
do you guys do much looking ahead at practice this week, or like, are you starting to prepare too for 3 different teams? Or are you just focused on Brownstown Central? How do you guys approach it so far, or have you approached it so far?
Or to be more basic, have you looked at South Knox?
Yeah, that was the real question I wanted to ask. I didn't want to.
We have both watched film on them. It's on our huddle. I know one of our assistant coaches, he's definitely looked at them. And we've talked about it a little bit, but I think in our minds, it's like one game at a time. If you look too far ahead, we're going to suck against Brownstown Central. So it's one game at a time. We'll get there when we get there. And we just have the mentality of going into it as nobody expects us to win. I mean, I don't think anybody expects us to be Triton. Nobody expects us to be Eastern. Nobody expects us to win regionals. So just going into it with an underdog mentality and the idea that we have nothing to lose and taking it one game at a time and knowing that we have one another and trying not to focus on the outside pressures or outside voices.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for hopping on with us. Best of luck to you on Saturday. Hopefully we'll be talking again soon.
Thank
you.
you.
Good luck, girls.
Joslyn Marshall, Casey Frost of Heritage Christian. Danny, one quick thought, and then we'll bring on Angie Hinton from Lanesville.
Yeah, and I'm certainly cognizant of the talent trajectory of Riley Johnson, and Casey Frost makes huge plays. But to me, I think Joss is the kid there. Okay, and I date back to the content that I had in the question, the loaded question that I asked her. Back in that Ron Collie game, like she was the kid. Like when they were down 20 and they needed a basket. They called timeout, came in an ATO situation, and they put her in a spot where she could get downhill in one spot off of a dribble handoff, and then put her on a post off a pin down in the other. I think there's a tacit direction toward Joslyn Marshall there. If they're going to beat Brownstown Central, she's got to be good, and I can say that knowing the Marshall family, knowing her sister Corinne, and the mom Angie, and been around them for years. I'm really happy to see them in this third weekend, but she's going to have to be really good this weekend if Heritage Christian is going to move on, because she just seems to be the security blanket, if you will, for that coaching staff. So that's probably my what to watch. Is it's going to be hard to keep your eyes off of Riley, but Joss is the one that's really hammering home all of their big time possessions.
22 points in that regional game against Northeastern, but it wasn't just her. I mean, it was like everybody was contributing. They got a double-double from the Taylor kid. Riley Johnson had a big game, like we were talking about, 12 points, and Casey Frost had a couple steals, a couple blocks, assists, rebounds, led the defense. I mean, it was a total team effort, and it feels like it's the kind of thing to take out Brownstown Central. And then, obviously, the elephant in the room and the team that Angie, who we'll bring on here in just a second, is intimately familiar with, as well as the whole South Knox of it all. And on that note, I'll bring on Angie Hinton. This is the first time, Angie, I think that one of the first times I think since I've been here that we're not talking at Cambridge Fieldhouse ahead of a state championship game. I got to admit, this is kind of uncomfortable for me.
Oh, well, I kind of liked it when we were there.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So how
are things? How are you doing after Saturday?
Well, we knew going into that game it was going to be tough. I mean, South Knox. I mean, they have everybody back from last year. Just such a deep team, just such a very talented team that can really score. They can handle the ball and they can score, and they've got such length. And it's hard on you, with your offense to try to score. We knew we had to get to the basket, just with. Trying to set Hadley up as much as we could. But, coming out of that game, our kids gave it their all. We played really hard. We played from the time the ball went up till the end. And at the end of the game, we even though the score says you got beat, it didn't really feel as much like a loss as some losses that I've had.
You mentioned, I'd imagine for kids like Hilton and Hadley and Shelby Allen that it's easy to get them believing and have that confidence. What about the other kids? Like, how did you get them buying in and believing, hey, it's you can do this, it's okay, you just got to believe? Like, how do you instill that in a group of kids?
Well, it's been a growing process from the beginning, because those kids were very timid. They'd never been in those situations before, because we had 4 seniors, we graduated. And, even before that, they really didn't have opportunities to play. So it was just a growing process. And my seniors, they did a really good job of just trying to build confidence. And, we just told the kids each day, you got to grow a little bit more, just be able to do a little bit more in your role for the team to help the seniors out. And, they have ability, but, playing on a big stage like that is really tough. We try to prepare with some games. I really thought during the season in the Floyd Central game that the kids were really a part of that game. They all contributed. And I think they felt like they could contribute, but they also, they didn't want to mess up either. They wanted to be able to help the seniors as much as they could. But it was just a growing process, and it's a day to day. I thought they came out and played hard. We were just unmatched in some positions because of their talent level. I really thought, 3 of our kids could really, match them pretty good, but we were just kind of we just couldn't match up with their positions in all 5 positions on the floor.
So how did you go about defending them? Now that it's behind us and we don't have to worry about giving trade secrets, I'm fascinated. How did you use Hadley? How did you deploy those different pieces that you have against their offense?
Yeah, it was really tough because we don't have the depth and we really couldn't do the things defensively this year that we wanted to, but we really know that Hadley is a great on-ball defender. So you're trying to use her on the best players as much as you possibly can, but she can't be everywhere on the court. So Hilton was a big part of that and trying to help. And, we played some zones. We tried to trap. We really would like to have been able to extend the floor a little bit more. And when we did, I thought we were able to turn them over a little bit. They're just so explosive. If they just get any room at all, they're going to pull up for a 3, which they did on a couple of occasions. But we went to some man-to-man. We had Hadley and Hilton just trying to cover, everywhere they could, trying to make some other kids score, which obviously they could. But we really had a matchup issue with Shelby because she was having to come out and guard a little bit on the floor because they didn't really have a true post presence in there. So Hadley was just trying to cover everywhere she could. We tried to trap a little bit, man. Just tried to disrupt them and spread them out a little bit more than maybe they were used to being spread out. But they're good ball handlers, they're good passers, so it was really difficult. But, our motto is always try to get a tip. If you get a tip on the ball, then your teammate's going to be there to maybe get a steal, just disrupt what they were trying to do.
Coach, I'm sorry this is the first time we've spoken. I've and it's 2-dimensionally, but I've been a big fan of what you guys did, and especially through the run. So congratulations on the state championship last year. The Hadley Crosier story was, that got to us all. And so you want it for Lanesville, you want it for your kids, but you also want it for everybody else that was just a fan of girls basketball, because I don't think there was one person that was running against her having a blue ring. Before I ask you a Hadley specific question, though, I've been dying to ask you about your defense. We had Maddie Shirley on earlier on the 3A, 4A preview, and she was talking about Corden Central and some of the things they did. And she's like, well, we didn't even really know what they were doing in the second quarter defensively. Like, we just kind of focused on ourselves. When people talk about playing Lanesville, it's very similar to what you guys do. I've been watching film for the better part of 20 years. I'm not sure that I could put into words your defensive rotations and come up with a consistent plan to attack your defense. Just talk about it. Without giving away trade secrets or whatever. Just what is it? Is it something that Hadley sets? Is it something that you work on? Just talk about your defense, and I'm just going to sit back and listen.
Well, our defense is a matchup, but the thing is that the matchup is different every game. So we try to just coordinate our defense depending on what players we're playing, what we're trying to stop, who we're trying to guard, what positions. So, we call it 11 defense. You got a point, you got your second guard is back in the middle, but they also have to come out. So depending on whether you're trying to stop a big girl, you're trying to stop a guard, those 2 people kind of run the defense. So you can extend it out. You can double with it if you're trying to match up to the guards. You're trying to double team the guards. Your wings have to be really good at reading the lanes and reading the situation. So we work on a lot of man-to-man in practice, but it is not because we're going to play man-to-man. It just makes us a little bit quicker at reading things. But it keeps us out of foul trouble a lot because we tell kids you are guarding a person in a space. So you're never guarding just a space, you're guarding people in spaces. So you can't really define every time what our defense is going to do because it just depends on the other team. And then during the game, we tell the kids we're going to adjust. So if we tell you need to cover this position, you're going to have to come out and you're going to have to guard this position. So in practice, when we do work on it, we just talk about our areas that we are responsible for. But then there's times where you have to come out of those areas, because if someone, everybody tries to overload their offense, so that puts your defense in a bind. Well, that's where your wings have to be really good to read where they have to be. Sometimes they have to come to the high post. Sometimes they got to stay down on the block. Sometimes they got to get that pass that's going through to the wing. But we started playing this defense when I was at New Albany. We had a lot of quickness. We had a lot of length. You have to have kids who are willing to adjust, because we'll have kids all the time that will say, well, coach, what do I do? What do I do in this situation? Well, what do I do if this happens? And so we just have to say, well, in this situation at this time, this is what you do. But the next time it might be different. So it's really, the kids have to learn to have a defensive instinct to be able to cover the areas. But basically it is a zone, but it's a matchup, and you'll hear us yell, you got to match, you got to go match. So it's not a true zone. We do like, we used to like to trap out of it a lot. We just weren't able to do that.
Last year you did. Yeah, there were a lot of times where you did last year.
Yeah. And then we like to extend it. We like to take it full court and then drop it back in to our 11 defense. Sometimes it'll look like a 2-3. Sometimes it'll look like a 1-3-1. And sometimes it'll look like 11. But again, it's always been designed to play the team that we were playing, and to specifically stop certain things that we wanted to stop. So,
well, it's good. It's fun to watch. And I give a lot of credit to the kids, and just kind of hearing you kind of put it into words. And one of those kids is Hadley Crosier. And before Hank asks you, preview specific questions about the semi-state that I know he's going to do, just tell us why Hadley Crosier is going to be an Indiana All-Star this year.
Well, she is just a great on-ball defender. You're not going to find anybody that's going to be able to guard the ball any better than she can. You put her out there. She has such great length and athleticism. She's the best point I've ever had on that defense. And that includes when I was at New Albany. We had some really good players that played it, but Hadley just has that length and quickness. She can recover, and you're gonna face a lot of good players, and you're gonna need a defensive stopper. So number one, that's one thing that she can do to really help the team. The other thing is she's such a team player. She's a good passer. She's a good slasher. She can shoot the ball. She can shoot the three. But she's had to do so much for our team, especially this year, that she's kind of had to put the team on her shoulder. But she showed that she could do that. Coming in this year, we really didn't know what she was going to be able to do. I knew she worked her tail end off from the time she had her surgery. But she was so athletic before, I wasn't sure if she was going to be able to match that with that type of injury. But as we started going through the season, and I know she was battling some mental hurdles with that, but we just didn't talk about it. We just played. It's like, well, you just have to go out and play. Because if you think about it, you'll stop doing things. Finally, about midway through the season, she really just started to kind of let loose. I think she was really afraid of hearing that pop again. And I think, she took a lot of hits throughout the season, and she was still doing good. And our trainer kept telling her, Hadley, you're okay. The leg's okay. You can just go out there and play. And I think she just built confidence up. In the last part of the season, she just really turned it on. And you could see in that regional game, they couldn't stop her going to the basket. I mean, she can really take it to the hole as good as anybody we have in Indiana. And if she's playing with better players, then she can distribute the ball. Then she can shoot the three a little bit. But we had to get out of her what we needed in order to win a basketball game. So she kind of had to sacrifice playing her total game, because she had to do a little of everything. And then on top of that, your legs are just tired. You've played your tail end off on the defensive end. Then you got to go down and score. So it was a really, a difficult year for her, but she really grew through it. And, I think, putting her on the All-Star team is just going to, it's a great story with her of perseverance of a kid who's had that injury, who was an all-star, who was going to be an all-star, our chances would have been even better this year, going through and maybe having her healthy where we could really work on some other parts of her game. But the main thing was we just had to focus on getting her healthy and out there playing again. She's going to college, and we wanted her to be ready to go to college again. She had done so much for us and the program that it was our turn to try to give back to her, to make her have as much success this season as she possibly could.
Hadley is just a badass. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to put it. I mean, gosh, Angie, I remember seeing you at All Stars and we talked about her, and I think I'd seen Hadley like a month early, and she was already out. She's like, "Yeah, I just ran my first mile the other day." It's like, I'm sorry, you did one now? I mean, it's just unbelievable, that kid. And then also we got to shout out Vince. I mean, the ACL whisperer.
Oh my!
I think you guys are a little snake bitten with that stuff, but the man is a maestro at those injuries.
He is absolutely the best, and our kids would not have recovered from those injuries had we not had him. And he's there every day, and he's working with them. He's working them out, and through our basketball season. But from the time she had that injury, and Shelby as well, I mean, he's right there with those kids, and he's an all-star. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the best, and we wouldn't have been in that position without him. And Hadley believed in him, and she's such a great kid, and she's such a great kid to be around. She was an inspiration to our team, and going back to our juniors, that's what we would tell our juniors. Hadley's out here working. We've got to work hard for her. You've got to be able to do little things to help her, because she wants to be here so badly and wants this, that we have an obligation to give back to her. But Hadley, she's just a real inspiration. She works so hard. You will not find a kid that works any harder than her. She gives it her all. Every game she plays, every practice she plays. And, I just so happy to see, it was a tough game on Saturday, but it was great to see her get back to herself and play her game.
One other South Knox question: as you looked at them on film, like how do you beat them? What's the key? How is a team going to be able to beat them? Because having seen them a couple times against 4A teams and on film, I'm not seeing many weaknesses, and I'm not sure that Danny is either.
Yeah, I turned around a couple times during that game. I was like, how do you stop that? I mean, they're pulling up, they're shooting Caitlin Clark threes out there.
Yeah.
They're just so comfortable doing it, and they're just very talented at shooting the basketball, but they can also knife to the basket. If I think it's going to take a team with a real strong post presence that can really get inside, but also you're going to have to be a good shooting team as well. Their length is deceiving. I mean, I love it because I think about the defense we play, and I'm thinking, man, those kids would be so good at what we do. I'm like, dang, they're doing to us. They're getting tips on balls and they're covering area. And you admire that as a coach. You hate it because you can't beat it, but you're going to have somebody that's got good ball handlers. You got to be able to score. We were able to get to the basket with Hadley. We knew that was one thing we could do, so we just kept trying to take that to the well. If we'd have been able to make some more outside shots, that would have helped us a little bit. So you're going to have to be a good shooting team. When we did get it inside, I thought we were pretty successful. We just didn't always make our baskets, but we did get it in there. So you're going to have to be a very, very balanced team, and you're going to have to outscore them. I was really proud of our defense. I thought that we did turn them over some more than maybe they've been turned over in some situations. I think we made them a little bit uncomfortable. We made them have to spread the floor a little bit more. They didn't get to finish the game like they finished a lot of games where they're way ahead. So I was really happy with that because I thought we really fought. But it's just going to take a really, really good, solid team that has a lot of weapons. You have to be able to match them 5 for 5 out there on the floor. And then they're going to bring kids off the bench. But they can only play 5. our problem was we were covering 2 or 3, but we couldn't cover all 5. So you're going to have 5 really solid kids out there that can play and then also be good offensive players, but they're going to be tough.
Another team that you're very, very familiar with, Borden, down in Class A now. You obviously had the odd situation where you had to come back over a month later to finish out that game, but it kind of seems to start with them with Wheeler, Rarick, and then they have Mallet, and they kind of throw different pieces at you, which seems kind of unique for a Class A team. What jumps out to you, and what were you looking at when you were preparing for Borden this year?
Well, they had a little more depth this year than they had in the past. Before you had those 3, and then you had Hart, who's a very, very solid player who could rebound and do a lot of good things for you. But that 5th position was not as strong as it is this year. They got McKenna Mullen back playing again. And that position, I mean, she's as good as, having Hart in there and having Malad in there. She does a lot of good things for them. She's a very solid player. Also has a pretty good basketball IQ. And then they got another freshman, or a freshman, Sailor Syker, I think I say that right. She comes off the bench, and she's a good freshman. So now they've got 6 really solid kids out there on the court. So again, you got to match them at every position. And that's kind of where we struggled a little bit, is being able to do that as much this year. But, Wheeler's improved her game a lot. She's taking it to the basket. She's 6'1". She can handle the ball. She can go outside and shoot. So, that's a tough matchup. You got Rarick, who's a 6'6" guard, and she really facilitates everything for that team. And then when she needs to score, she will, but she's always looking mostly to set the other kids up. So that's 2 really good experienced kids. Malad is a very physical guard, and if she gets hot shooting, that makes them very good. And she's solid on defense. Hart gives them that inside presence that she can score. I don't think they use her as much as they could, or that maybe they don't need to as much, but she's always there for weak side boards and, got baskets there. But what Mullen does, she's just kind of a utility kid. She can rebound. She can take it to the basket. She'll hard-nosed defense you. So she's a good, solid player to have out there on the court. Good passer. And then you bring Syker in, and she's just a really good all-around player. She's got a good basketball IQ. I think you're going to see her improve in the next few years. She's going to be a really good player. She can shoot the ball. She's a good slasher. And she kind of just plays her role right now. And I think at any moment when they need her, she can step up and do things for them.
Awesome. Well, Angie, we appreciate you taking the time to jump on and talk with us. It's been so much fun covering you guys here this season and past couple of years as well. And congratulations on a great run. And I guess just have a great off season. And I'm sure we'll be talking here again soon with All-Stars coming up.
All right. I appreciate it. Had a good
Thanks,
time.
Coach.
Take care. Angie Hinton, head coach at Lanesville, helping us break down South Knox and Borden. Danny, any quick thoughts on either of those teams before we bring on our next guest?
No, I mean, I think we started this season talking about how we're on this potential collision course between Marquette Catholic and Borden, and Borden's still there and alive. I'm sorry.
Or no, yeah, you're right. I'm losing it.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah,
in A. But yeah, I mean, she talked about South Knox. I mean, I think the question that we probably should have asked her is, can anybody beat them? Like she said, you have to have a strong post presence. Well, I mean, like she did, like Shelby Allen, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's going to be tough to beat them. But I think one of the things that Holly has to be really happy about is to get that kind of praise from a state championship coach in Angie Hinton. Like that's got to feel really good. And I don't know if she'll watch this or if she'll see it, but I will certainly let her know that she had such kind words to say about her. But that was really good insight.
Yeah. Angie's the best. We're going to stay in the South. And I'm really excited about this because this is like the two, like as nicknames go, this is phenomenal. It's the Jets versus the Jeeps. Anderson Prep 18-9 taking on Northeast Dubois. We're just going to bring on
Dubois.
Emmersen.
I think it's Dubois.
Michael Cave right now. Hey guys, the first question, because I'm really bad at my job. How do you pronounce your town's name?
Dubois.
Dubois. Okay, so I wasn't anywhere close, but that's
So
fine.
Dubois, like Leon.
I really leaned into the French when we were talking off air this afternoon, and boy, the ribbing that I got from these guys was it was nonstop. So I'm glad that I didn't
doubled
open
down.
up with,
You opened the show with Dubois.
I know. I should have just done that and thrown a mustache. How are you guys doing? How is semi-state prep going?
It's going good. Today we took off yesterday. We came back today in practice, and we got going today, and the rest of the week we'll see what the weather holds, what we get to practice. But we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're having a really good week. We did have that really big game, regional. So, we're taking it light at the beginning of the week, and then we're slowly going to start progressing more and more into it.
Emmersen, is it sank in yet for you that you're regional champs and playing here on the third weekend?
It has not. Just winning sectional was like the best feeling, and then to be able to compete in regional and beat a really solid team, that makes our confidence go up so much more. And you did just win regional. Not a lot of people can say that they did that. So yeah, it's been amazing.
First sectional championship for the Jeep since 2018, first regional championship since 2012. So a couple droughts came to an end this year, Danny, for them. Emmersen and Coach, talk us through that North Central Farmersburg game. How did you guys pull that off? And I'm guessing started on the defensive end with controlling their top scorers.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of take pride a little bit on our man-to-man defense, and we put Emmersen on the Davison girl, which is an outstanding scorer for them. And Emmersen did an outstanding job. She shut him down. She made it really tough on her to score. And then the other guard, the Say girl, was, she was up there with her. And then we had Kenzie Cave on her that was able to contain her. And, and then after that, we put Lily Schnell, our big girl, in the middle. We dropped her right down there below the free throw line and just had her to wait on them. So whenever they dribble penetrated in, she was there to contest the shot or to block it. And that was what our plan was for the game, was to do that. And it worked out really well. And then but the game was back and forth. It was trading baskets back and forth. Nobody really got a lead. Nobody, really did anything, but it was a low scoring game to begin with. And then all of a sudden there in the fourth quarter, Bella Cummins came to life, and the switch flipped on, and she just took off like just out of control, getting steals, getting scoring. And once it started, she never did stop. And that was a big plus for us in that game.
Emmersen, what were you doing against Jalen? How did you approach that matchup? You hold her to 7 points, well below her Steven average on 3 of 10 shooting. Brag about yourself a little bit. How'd you pull that off?
Well, my biggest thing is I watched a lot of film on her, and I seen that a lot of the girls, they don't have the best weak side defense. I know that she'll shoot my face if I'm not guarding her, and she'll shoot well past the 3-point line. So, I know I had to guard that. And, if I did get beat, I had a lot of trust in my teammates. Lily was there, Kinsey was there, all the girls were there to help me. So they would step over until I could get back, and then we would all just scramble and just get situated again. So, and I think the biggest thing was our student section and the community that we had, they were all cheering me on. They were like, come on, Emmersen, let's go. And say I would stop, or they would all I would watch film and they would stand up and cheer. So, I think it was just the support I had and the help. So I know if I did mess up, hey, my team's got me, and I got next possession to fix up on that.
So, Coach, this was identification on film, implemented throughout the week and executed on game day with no real adjustment, is what I'm essentially hearing, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much so. We had planned all week what we were going to do and how we were going to defend it, and we'd watch film on them, and we was pretty prepared for it. And the girls bought into it, and that was a big thing. They had all the confidence in themselves to do it, and once the game got started, they kind of realized that this is going to work, and this is what we got to do to get us to the next level.
From one coach to another, when you get it right, it injects a level of confidence through your team and your staff that is immeasurable through, I mean, regardless of the scheme that you're running. I mean, it's just kind of belief and buy-in and so all of those cliches. So congratulations on that. I mean, that's just that's really something. Emmersen, is that something that mattered to you? I mean, maybe not in the moment, but retrospectively, I mean, you've got a coach that's going to study and implement a good plan, and he's going to do the same thing this week, right? I mean, that's got to give you a tremendous amount of confidence in heading into this game in the morning on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, either way, like, say we do have a matchup and he's having me guard a girl and it's not working out and, like, we need a switch. Like, I have fully trust in my teammates to where we can. And I mean, it's not just our head coach that scouts a lot, like, our assistant coach does too. So, like, we're in practice, coach is explaining, and say I have a question on what they do and stuff, my assistant coach, he knows the answer for it. So, I mean, it's really nice. Our coaching staff, I mean, they all scout, they all can answer your questions. And, you know, it really does help knowing that I do have a prepared coaching staff that really takes this serious. And yeah, it's definitely nice.
But it's different, Michael, regional to semi-state, and not because it's around later and Indianapolis is closer. It's because there's 2 games in a day and there's different possible matchups, right? So your approach has to be different than it is in regional, where you can load up on one scout with your entire staff. So, and I ask you this not to jab, I hope you take this the right way, but this being your first semi-state, right? That's got to be something that you've got to go through now from an adjustment period. So how have you balanced this week? How have you balanced the film study? What are you giving the kids? I mean, without obviously talking, strategy with us, but with 3 teams to prepare for, that's got to be very different.
Yeah, that's definitely different. But also, you got to think back in the normal season. Usually, we play 2 games a week to 3 games sometimes when you play on Saturday. So all year we've kind of focused on, we got this game coming up first, then the next game we got to prepare for, and then the same thing if there's a game on Thursday or Saturday. So we've worked all year on about a little bit in each practice. You maybe touch on something that the next team or another team might do. So whenever it comes to the time, the girls will be prepared for, that's what he told us the other day, or that's what we worked on the other day. We might not get a lot of time to work on some of it, but we've at least talked about it throughout this week for the upcoming games.
So Hank is going to take you into some maybe weekend specific questions, but Emmersen, can you talk about some of your teammates, right? I mean, you had kind of mentioned them. You mentioned the community, of course, but you also talked about, some of your kids being on helpline when you were guarding Jalen and things like that. You don't get here being a one-man show. You don't get to the 3rd weekend just doing it. So talk about some of your teammates, who stepped up, who's had big runs, who you're running with on Saturday.
Well, I think everybody's had big moments, I mean, obviously Bella's been a huge factor with scoring. I mean, definitely couldn't have done this without her. She really gets after it on the defensive end. I mean, she is leading our team in steals. So, if there's a loose ball, Bella's the first one running after it, diving, just putting in that extra effort. And then Kinsey, I mean, Kinsey has a big factor on the court too. I mean, she's always guarding one of the best players, if not the best. And she's always sitting there on the 3-point line, or she's always getting open looks. So, I mean, I know if I drive and I pass out, Kinsey's always there making that open shot. And I mean, Lily, our big girl, I mean, just her factor, like just her presence says a lot, I mean, she is 6'1", 6'2". So I know if I'm guarding a girl and I get beat, Lily's there. I mean, she has multiple big blocks a game in crucial times, and she's averaging 8 rebounds a game. And I mean, she's a phenomenal free throw shooter. So I know that, hey, like if we're fouled on the line and stuff, Lily's got this. And then we also have Ava Helming. And I mean, in our regional game, it was getting pretty close at the end, and she got a really big offensive rebound for us while they were shooting a free throw. And then they had to foul us, and we had to shoot some free throws. So, I mean, Ava's always getting after it. I mean, that girl, she's always there with help. I mean, say some girls posting up Lily, Ava's always on that backside. She's always there. And I don't know, we just have a really good bunch of girls. And, and I think everybody stepped up in the scoring, Some nights I'll be scoring, some night Bella will be scoring, everybody plays their role really well. I mean, I don't think there's any form of jealousy, some may say. Like, everybody, we all respect each other really well. And I mean, we all just want the best for each other. So I think that's our biggest thing.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think a lot of it is our team bonding. We all get along really well. It's a tremendous group of girls. Not only the 5 that start, but then you got some others. Another senior on the team, Cassie Riker. She's she's our prayer warrior for our team, and she leads us in prayer before every game. And she might not get that much playing time, but she's still an important part of our team. And then we got another one, Hadley Kalb, the sophomore, that comes off the bench and gives us some good minutes. And and then we got several other sophomores that are on the team that also as contributors, maybe not on the court during the game, but in practice, getting us ready for the next game, maybe playing as if they were somebody else or what, to get us better.
Looking ahead now to Saturday, and I have one APA question. Olivia People seems to kind of be their go-to. Everything kind of runs through her. Emmersen, I'll start with you, and then Coach, if you want to chime in as well. Just how do you approach that matchup, and what do you see from that kid when you see her on film?
I mean, I haven't watched too much film on her, but I know that she is a strong player, and I know that she is leading the team well. So I think we're just going to have to match up well with her. I mean, I assume we're going to have Lily start on her. I mean, she's a pretty big, strong girl, and I think we're just going to have to hope her out. I mean, if you see her cut into the lane, we'll have to obviously talk and communicate that. Lily's going to have to front her, and they'll have to have somebody there just like for her backside and just have presence like, hey, there's 2 girls on you,
Mm-hmm.
So I feel really confident going in this. Lily's a tremendous defender, so I think we'll do well against that matchup.
Yeah,
Coach, what have you seen from?
I feel the same way, and we're going to match up with them. And, I don't want to say much about it, but we do have a plan how we're going to build a container. That's going to be the big thing. Anything you get a girl, something like that, you can't always stop them, but you can contain them and, limit their shots, limit their scoring if all possible. And there's a lot of things you can do, to be able to do that, whether it's rebounding, that's a big thing usually, and stuff like that. And that's the thing, we're going to have to focus on the rest of this week is being able to contain a scorer like that. She's different than what we worked on last week, because last week was the Davison girl where she was out on the perimeter and we had to worry about her. This one's going to be on the inside, but the People's girl, she can take it one-on-one, the coast to coast. The films that I've watched, very outstanding player. So we got to be able to know where she's at all the time on the court. We got to be able to help, because when she takes off dribble and driving to the basket, we have to have maybe a couple there ready to step over and to help contain her.
Looking ahead, Coach, have you had a chance much to study Borden yet? Have you started diving into the film, or is that something that you save for a little later in the week?
Well, I'll be real honest with you. After the draw, I told my girls, we're going to take this one game at a time. And we've done that ever since. The sectional game, we started with Wood Memorial. We took that one. Then we played Tecumseh, or we played Evansville Christian, and I took that one game at a time. And I told them after every game, girls, it's one game at a time. We're not going past anybody till we get one game at a time done. And then we'll worry about the next opponent.
I suppose that Emmersen, that's got to relieve a little bit of the stress. Like, is it easy to buy into that is it easier, I guess, to buy into that as a senior, that one game at a time mentality?
I mean, that's the biggest way. I mean, it's tournament time. Everybody can play different, I mean, there's a lot more pressure going into it. So I honestly think that is just one game at a time, survive in advance, play your own game and just execute the best to your ability.
2 random questions. And the first one, this is kind of a shot in the dark. I'm curious. You guys played South Knox at the beginning of the year. How would you approach trying to beat a team like that? Like, that's just such a fascinating question to me, because obviously I have no idea what the answer is, and I'm curious to hear people who know what they're doing, what their approach would be or is.
I'd start by praying really hard. They are a real good team. I've scouted them a few times before we played them, and they got all the parts and pieces to an outstanding team. And if somebody beats them, I'll be very surprised, because Holly does an outstanding job with them, for one thing. And then they have the Bulb girl that goes along, and I mean, just a tremendous team. I just can't say enough good about them as a team. Maybe Emmersen has other thoughts about it. I don't know, but
No, I totally agree. I mean, that's one hard team to beat. And I mean, gosh, yeah, you just got to pray for that team and
we played them earlier in the year. That was our third game of the year, so that was a little bit tough for us. We had still getting going, but still, there was no excuse for the way we played. But South Knox, they're the real deal.
That's a really tough game. 4 games in the year, Coach. I mean, that's like you're mad at the kids. And you want to put them punish them a little bit. Jeez Louise.
Well, we had to play both Knoxes. We had to play North Knox and then turn right around and play South Knox. That was a double whammy.
Emmersen, what did you do?
I mean, you're going from one competitive game to another. So, I mean, we did have like a week's break in between, but I mean, North Knox was super physical. I mean, it was a closer game, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, North Knox did have 5 really good players, so you couldn't take that game lightly. And you look at the schedule, you see North Knox, and you're like, okay, that's a big game. And then you look and see now South Knox right after them, and you're like, can you catch a break? But I mean, I don't know. It's a good team. Both of them are really good teams. So, I mean, all you could do is just go out and execute to the best ability you can. But, yeah, definitely going to be a hard team to beat in the tournament.
6 road games, too, so that's fun. A lot of bus time, right? A lot of team bonding opportunities, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. It took us a while to get back home after that. So, yeah. But we play a pretty competitive schedule. So, nobody was really any light schedule for us the whole season, so which was good for us come tournament time.
Right. Is it easy, Coach, from a scheduling standpoint? Is it easy for you to get some of those bigger schools to play? Like I see Jasper's on there too, and a couple of those bigger class schools. Like, is it easy to get them to play you?
Yeah, they want to play us. Yeah, it's pretty easy for us, really. We could have added one more this year to our schedule, but we were kind of didn't want to because last year we had hosted a tourney, so we had to drop some teams. This year we didn't get a tourney, but we played at Knightstown at the Hoosier Gym. So we had to kind of watch our schedule. And then next year we're thinking about getting a tourney going again. So we kind of had to watch who we pick up and who we don't, and so our schedule can work out.
One last random one, and Emmersen, I'll let you take this one first. What's the history behind your team's nickname, the Jeeps, which obviously I love and think it's amazing?
I mean, honestly, I've heard so many different stories. I'm not the best one to answer this question. I mean, I know it's from the Popeyes movie or something like that, but I mean, it's always fun when people ask me what is a Jeep, and I'm like, that's a really good question. I don't even know.
What's your favorite one? Like, if you could just pull one out here and just call it gospel, we'll go with it. Whatever you say now is going to become canon, so you can choose the story.
No, we're not doing that.
Michael, do you have any insight into the
well,
unique
I would agree with what Emmersen said. The cartoon figure, Popeye, the cartoon figure. Now, our mascot, he's been shown to be pretty big. I don't think that was the way it was in the cartoon figure. So we talked about maybe getting him a little bit smaller costume, but we take a lot of pride in it. Our community is big supporters of us, and and I can't say enough about our community support that we've had. We had a great showing the other night at the regional game. It was outstanding, the crowd we had, and anywhere we go, we have a tremendous crowd, and that goes back to our community support. That's just really backs us.
Awesome. I love to hear it. I love the nickname. I love it all. Best of luck to you guys this weekend down there in Shelbyville. That's also a fun place to play. Best of luck to you, and hopefully, maybe we'll be talking here again in a week at Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thanks, guys. Take care. All right, that was Michael Cave, Emmersen Cobb of Northeast Dubois.
You did great.
Thanks.
Hey, listen,
I think it's the confidence that I put behind it. I think that sells it. It really screams professionalism.
You nice effect pausing.
Thank you,
if you will.
It's dramatic. What's he gonna say?
Sometimes in tournament play, you see a player get hot. Okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes you can see a coach get hot too. And I've said it several times, and I've heard people say it to me several times too, that coaches will be like, I'm seeing it clearly. I'm figuring it out or whatever. Trust me when I tell you, when you watch film and identify a game plan and it's right, and you don't need to adjust during the game, you end that basketball game with a tremendous amount of confidence. So the next time you turn on film, you start to see things with a little bit more clarity and a little bit more confidence. So from that standpoint, Michael sounded great. And Emmersen was like, yeah, I mean, the coach just nailed it. And this is what we did. What's interesting about that is Emerson's not going to guard Peoples. She was talking about how there's probably going to be a different matchup. Peoples plays a different position than Davidson and C. And so that could be something that you could watch, because if they get to Borden, Emmersen now goes back to presumably Wheeler, perhaps Rarick. But if Michael starts to get hot here, look out, because now you have one of those kind of unique situations that, 3 games later you say, talk about your run. And it was just like, hey, we had good practices. We had good plans in place. We executed them, things like that. It can be that simple. And when you couple the fact with the computers, and a lot of this has to do with the schedule that you were talking about, they're not like resounding underdogs. I mean, they have like a 39. The computers have give them a 39% chance of winning semi-state. That's a very big number. And so when you say to them, maybe we're going to be talking in a couple of weeks, if Michael stays hot, that's a real good chance that we're going to.
And I mean, the job they did defensively against Farmersburg, like I watched them play 3A Cascade right after the new year. Like that team's got some firepower. Like when they get going, the C kid and the Davidson kid, and obviously we knew about them from their run last year in the tournament. I mean, those kids scores in bunches, and to hold the C kid to 14 points on 4 of 16 shooting. So she got her points, but she had to really work for it. And then Davidson, 7 points on 3 of 10. That's really remarkable. And then coach talked about it. A kid gets hot. Suddenly, they're outscored them 22-10 in the fourth quarter on their way to a win. So just a really impressive team. And that if everything goes chalk, which it feels like it should, I don't want to write anybody off. North Miami, not North Miami, Anderson Prep, maybe they keep the postseason run going. Same thing with Borden's opponent, South Decatur, comes in at 16-11. Maybe they pull the upset there. But if it does go chalk, that's going to be a really fascinating matchup with just the weapons that Borden brings offensively against that Jeeps defense.
And then another opportunity too, and we're going to have Katie on here in a second to talk about it. But sometimes when you're a public school within that district and there's multiple counties that feed into your school or whatever the situation is down there at Northeast Dubois, but they talk both Emmersen and Michael both talked about the community following. Crowds make a difference in this.
Oh yeah,
they absolutely make a difference. And I remember Katie actually talking about how she's like, Danny, we have the smallest crowd every game that we play. We have the smallest crowd. They continue to win, but when you play every game as Marquette Catholic as the road game, like that's difficult because there is such energy that's drawn from these small town crowds, and it sounds like they've got one of them. I talked earlier in the episode about how I just marveled at what Caston's gym looked like with Alexandria versus
it was almost too small for the building for them and Rensselaer.
1,000%.
It really was kind of too small. Rob was tweeting about that. Like, why are we here? They're struggling to fit everybody in, but at the same time, like it looked really cool.
I think it's better. I think it's better in the small gyms. I mean, and I'm not suggesting that we should move the state championship out of Gainbridge Fieldhouse, but we should move the state championship out of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Let's move it into a smaller place.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It feels so hollow in there. And like, it's cool. It gives a big game feel to it. But you know what else gives it a big game feel? Fans.
Yeah,
and like the pack stands and all that. And that too, I'll go on a quick tangent here before on Katie and Laniah, but just if they move the semi-states, like if they have more options, so you're not sending Roncalli and Cathedral and all the way down to freaking New Albany, down by Louisville. Like how does that make sense when Southport is on the table? Or why does that make sense when you can play it at pick a school on the south side? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's not like we have 17 of the biggest high school gyms in the country or anything here. I mean,
yeah, I don't get it, Dan. I don't get it. But yeah, with that, we're going to move up to the north now as we bring on our final guests of the night, Danny. Laniah Davis, Katie Collignon of Marquette Catholic. Marquette Catholic comes in at 22-4. They're getting ready to play North Miami in their semi-state semifinal, 1 p.m. at LaPorte. How are you guys doing?
I'm good.
We're great.
It's great to see you guys. How are things?
Can't complain. Cold, but we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cold up here.
Yeah, geez Louise, it's miserable outside. I hate this.
Yeah.
So let's just start with Laniah. Katie, let's brag on Laniah a little bit before we let her talk about herself. Just what have you seen from that young lady in terms of her development as a player this year?
Oh, I mean, she's locked in. I mean, she always was an explosive scorer as a freshman, but the way she's been able to extend her game, I mean, that she can score from anywhere. She got so much better at the three. She's always been pretty good at the pull up and getting to the rim, but I think the way she's been able to lead our team, both offensively and defensively, has just been really impressive.
Laniah, how have you looked to expand your game this year, and what have you, I guess, just how would you describe your own development? Why don't you brag on yourself a little bit?
I look to shoot a lot more than I did the past years because I wasn't really a shooter, but now I shoot it a lot more, which opens up the lane a lot, and also became a better leader and a better communicator. So I feel like that helped my team a lot as well.
Has that come naturally to you? Like, are you a naturally outspoken person, or is it forcing you out of your comfort zone a little bit?
Out of my comfort zone. Yeah.
So, Katie, how have you fostered her development and kind of pushed her out of that comfort zone?
Constantly challenging her. I can see it. She does have a very stern demeanor when she plays, and it's very intimidating. And I love that side of her. But there's often times where we also need kind of that vocal leader and that person to get everyone in the right spots. And she is such a great defender, especially on the ball. She's one of our best talkers. So I think when she's able to do that, she brings so much more energy to our team, and we just feed off of that. And it's it really makes a bigger impact on the game.
Katie, you heard my comments when you were waiting backstage. Did I misremember that? Did you talked about how you guys are like playing a road game every time, right? Has it been much of the same through this tournament run?
Much of the same. Yep. So usually we always have the smallest crowd, but we like to think that we're small and mighty. We kind of just made it our own now.
Yes.
Again, I think the Tri-County, they had the whole town was there. They definitely outmatched us. It was probably 80-20. But our fans, they also pack a punch. So it might look small, but we bring a lot of passion.
It's a great answer. So what's been different about this run, or has it been different? Is it just one game at a time, or you're just going to get there, or have you relied back on the experience that you had last year? Talk about that.
I think a little bit of both. I think we all have a very common goal coming into the season, to make it to the final game and come up short. I think we all had kind of one team goal entering the season, but I am a game by game coach. You can't get to the next game if you don't take care of the one game in front of you. So I think our experience, we have a different vibe to us. I would say this year, last year, we were just like happy to be here. It was just like, wow, we did it. Let's do the next one. And this year it's like, no, we're here to do something. We're here to make some noise. We're going to do all the things that we need to get it done. And I think we're just a lot more confident and feel a lot more comfortable in the driver's seat.
So Marissa splashed onto the scene last year, and Hank was running highlights. We all remember the three that kept your season alive, and it was her one shining moment, and the Marquette Catholic one shining moment. Give us the update. Where is she now? How has her year been? How's her postseason run been?
Her postseason run, she's been playing really good basketball since January. She had played good basketball all year for us, but just wasn't knocking down the shots that she kind of did last season. And something just switched. I mean, she's puts a lot of work in off the court and on the court, but off the practice. And she's really more confident now. I think in the last couple of games, she's hit multiple threes in every one of our last couple of games. Against the sectional semifinal against Westville, she hit 5 threes for us, which were in 3 in the first quarter, I believe. And that really sparked our offense because they kind of just really just clobbered up the lane on us. So when she's shooting confident, her and I have really just been a 1-2 punch for us on the offensive end from the guard position. And I think it makes us really, really hard to guard.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that production through January is probably passed down from you. I mean, you seem to be we talked about it last year. It was the narrative last year. I mean, this is what you do, Katie. You just get teams downtown. Okay. And your kids have bought into that process. So how has it been for you? We talked about how Michael was maybe seeing the game clearly and things like that. You're just applying the same concepts, I assume, that you've applied this other multiple times that you've made these postseason runs, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just like I think you guys talked about too. Basketball can be a simple game, and defense does win championships. And I think our girls have finally really bought into that we can bring our defense every single night. So if you can defense and you can play defense and you can rebound, you can shut a lot of people up. So I think we've held people down and made it really tough on them to score, got them really frustrated, and it turns into easy baskets for us. And that's a simple recipe for winning. It really is. You're not relying on, oh, we had a bad shooting night or this happened. Like if another team only scores 20 to 25 points, I think that we have enough skilled players to score more than that. So I think our toughness has really come along this year, especially in the last couple of weeks. And I just think that the focus and the drive is really coming full circle.
Laniah, from a player's perspective, how is the mentality, how is the energy in the room different this time of year this year versus last year at semi-state weekend?
I think everybody wants it because they know how it feels to come up short. And I think everybody, they just they have the mind for it. They really have the drive to go all the way to the end, but actually win this time.
Obviously, it sucks to lose in a state championship game, but as you look back now, I guess, have you found perspective with that, I guess? I mean, you did to Lanesville what not many teams were able to do, and honestly, not many would have even expected with just how tightly you played that game.
No, not really.
That's fair.
Yeah, it still hurts.
Yeah. Is that something that you guys talk about and embrace? Like, let's not feel that way again, or is that something that you just kind of leave on that's better left unsaid?
I think we have talked about it and embraced it, but also we just left it where it's at because we know that we could get there again, but just actually win this time as long as we stay level-headed.
You guys jumped in. Obviously, expectations were sky high coming into the year, but I mean, to go out there, you hang with McCutcheon, you take them to overtime, you play Lake Central. I mean, you hit them right out of the gate, Katie, with that schedule. I guess just what does that do for a team's confidence for both of you guys? How does that kind of set the tone for the rest of the year?
I think it's huge. I mean, I have always been a proponent of playing a really tough schedule, the toughest schedule you can get. I mean, the tournament's not seeded. So again, doesn't matter how many regular season wins you get or how many 20-win seasons you have before that tournament starts. It's if you can go against bigger, stronger, faster players. So when that game does maybe go down a little bit or it gets a little slower, your team is ready. Your team is ready. So I think we had a couple overtime games this year, played a close one with, I think, Culver Academy at the end of the year. So there's those big moments, I think, allows our team to breathe a little easier when that game gets close or it's on the line.
Laniah, how has that played out for you, just having those tough games right out of the chute?
I feel like it helped us as a team, helped us build character and learning, like my coach said, what to do in certain situations when the game get close. And I feel like it helps us, we know that we can hang with teams like this. So I feel like we could play with anybody.
Laniah, I want to ask you a question and give you an opportunity to answer in front of your coach. I've gotten to know Katie pretty well over the last couple of years, and so I can always get an inside look at Marquette Catholic by just sending a text message. But I want to hear it from you. You are one of the best downhill attackers in the state, regardless of class, regardless of anything, really. I mean, you can just get downhill. You shoot the mid-range jumper with super high proficiency. Just talk about what the communication is between you and Katie. Does she tell you? Does she script the downhill attacks for you, or does this happen organically? What within that system makes the relationship between you and Katie work?
I don't feel like it's scripted really. I feel like if the lane is there and I see it, then I take it, and then I know not to take a shot if I'm not squared up because she'll get on me about that. That's really the only thing that she gets on me about when I shoot the ball.
Katie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say about the same thing. It's very organic. I mean, you have a player with the skill and the speed of Laniah. I mean, why slow it down? When we're at our best, it's when she's running, she's pushing the ball and gets everybody else involved too. So I definitely am a coach that says, let's go. I mean, I'm probably shouting that the most. We want to go. We want to go. I'm big on saying that a lot of teams can't run with us. And when Laniah is leading that break, we look pretty good. So that's how I like to play. I like to play up tempo. I like to, get up and get after people. And when you get a kid like Laniah, you let her go.
Is there something that really concerns you about your team, Katie? I mean, you guys have had such a high level of success for so long. There's a ton of film out there. There's a ton of evaluation about Laniah and all of your players, really. I mean, is there a blueprint out there to beat you guys, or is the only team that can beat you guys yourselves?
That's a great question. You know, I laugh at my assistant coach all the time. I like to think that I am my best scout. So I'll put in about 10 different things that I think the other team would do. That's how I would beat me. And often, lucky enough, they never put them in. So I'm not going to share any of those things.
Text me later. Yeah.
Ask me later. Ask me in March. But yeah. So again, I've always been that type of coach. I can always try to see both sides of it, or what I would do, or how I would do this. So a lot of times in practice, we'll go over something, or we'll cover something, and they never see it. But we have a lot of tricks up our sleeve.
And so last question before I throw it back to Hank. I mean, is you get into this weekend, you said it's one game at a time. So you've only focused on the 10 and noon, scouts, or have you guys started to look at film at your possible semi-state night opponent? And what are you sharing with the kids? And I ask that from a place of curiosity, because I'm not a high school coach. I don't deal with this. I mean, we play 2 games in a day at an AAU perspective. I mean, we get it all the time. And I still to the day, I don't know what's right. I don't. But I will rely on the experience of somebody who's done it at a very high level within this state. What do you do this weekend?
Our focus will be that first game for the kids, for sure. That's the first game, because you got to get through it. You know what I mean? You can't look past it. Every minute counts. People, weird things have happened. Teams have gone down, and then you're thinking, for what? I think as a coaching staff, we might be looking a little bit more into it. We'll be a little more prepared. But that second game is the second game for everybody. It's the championship for everybody. So it's a lot of emotions. It's a lot of roll the ball out and let's see. Let's go woman versus woman on how we're going to play this thing. So I'm confident in my team. If we're able to get by that first game, that our emotions and our training will get us there. But yeah, we'll be a little more prepared than the kids are. But the kids, we got to get that first one.
As a coach, do you build like a streamlined game plan or something like that, like an easy to digest game 2 scout, so that you can just have that ready to go? And like as soon as you win that game and get to the hotel, like, hey kids, here's what you need to know.
Yeah, and we'll watch that first game live as a team. So we'll get there beforehand. I mean, luckily we're close this year, which is crazy. So that's really nice for us. So watch that first game. So they'll kind of get to know the personnel. But at this point in the season, I tell the girls all the time, it's mostly personnel. I mean, they're not going to do something that you have not seen yet. We played, 20-something games. They can't invent another ball. They can't put 6 players out there. They can't raise the hoop. So at the end of the day, if we just defend and play our way, we're confident in what that game plan looks like.
What do you think of the 2-game semi-state? You've won at both sides. Do you like it, not like it?
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. In my opinion, the 3 sectional, 2 regional, 1 semi-state state seems like a very good progression. I understand why the IHSAA did it. I think a lot of teams have won their first regional, which I think is lovely. But I was back in the days where we just got a plaque. There was no bigger trophy. The big trophy didn't come to the last one. So it's a little grittier, but I understand that, probably more people in the stands, which is also wonderful. But from a game perspective, I liked the kind of the sequence of 3, 2, 1, 1. But
how would you feel about splitting it? Like I think that would kind of make sense personally. Like you put the semifinals on Friday, give you guys a chance to celebrate and enjoy it and recover. So then Saturday it's more of a best on best, or do you like the doubleheader where it's like I forget the words, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I mean, yes, and again, half a dozen one, half a dozen another, I think. I mean, at the end of the day, we train for this. Our kids work hard all season long. I don't think it's like a tiredness issue. But sometimes for travel, that would be tough, and your fans are coming back. Like we were down in Frankfurt last year. That was about a 2-hour drive for our fans. So will we gotten fans on Friday if we were going to play on Saturday? It kind of makes it difficult too, but so does what do you do for 6 hours in the middle of the day in Frankfurt, Indiana. So there's a lot of things that go into it. I don't envy anybody that makes those decisions. We were in Caston. I heard you talk about Caston every year from like 17, 18, 19. So we spent a lot of time in Caston, Indiana, where I think there's one restaurant.
So jealous.
Yeah. So we got to know Caston pretty well, but you're fortunate enough to do so. But yeah, I don't envy anyone that makes those decisions, but I'm a person that takes what's given to us and does the best that we can with it.
Danny, ours is a Caston podcast now. I think we've mentioned them, name dropped them more probably in the past like 2-3 episodes than maybe ever in the history of the world.
It's Rob Hunt's fault when he made his bio, where is Caston? Right. I Googled where's Caston.
Well, we're stuck with it. Hey, Laniah, as you look at North Miami and you've started to scout them now, what jumps out to you when you see them on film?
I know that they start 3 post players and they have height on them.
Is that height like that's obviously pretty unique? Have you guys seen any teams who run anything like that or anything close to that this year?
McCutcheon
Yeah.
was pretty big.
Yeah, McCutcheon was really big.
And McCutcheon's
And-
still playing, so
Yep,
there you go.
that was I was like, oh, okay.
And also the regional game we just played, I feel like they had a lot of tall players as well.
So you're kind of familiar with the size and kind of what you guys are going up against?
Yes. Yes.
Katie, what have you seen from North Miami so far?
Yeah, I mean, they move the ball really well. They're really strong at all 5 positions. They got a couple kids that kind of lead the way for them that are really athletic and do a lot of good things. They play an aggressive man-to-man. It looks like right now they get in your face. They want to press. They want to play fast. So I think that would lead itself to an up-tempo game between the both of us. They do a lot of things well. Coach is intense. Again, on the sideline, I love it. So you should see probably 2 very charismatic coaches on the sideline on Saturday. But yeah, they've been playing well. So, we got to be locked in.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Laniah and Katie, so much for taking the time to hop on with us. It's great seeing you guys and catching up, and hopefully we'll be talking here again soon.
Thank you.
Hopefully. Thank you, guys. Good seeing you guys.
Take care. Katie Collignon, Laniah Davis of Marquette Catholic joining us. Danny, that does it for us in terms of interviews. I think we've touched on every single matchup in 2A and A at this point. Are there any closing thoughts or anything else that you want to dive deeper on?
Well, I will point out just a comment on the exit of Katie's interview. If Lafayette Central Catholic was at 10 a.m. or noon and not at 8 a.m., assuming chalk in the morning games, that would play out entirely differently because of the week to prepare and the scout and the one game approach that just about every coach has said that they're just going to go one game at a time. I'm not sure I believe that. I love Katie, and I'm not going to argue against her approach, right? But you're not going in cold against Lafayette Central Catholic.
No,
and you're not implementing this stuff during the week. But if it was at 10 a.m., that would play out totally. I think it would play out totally different. And I think the one thing that the 2-game semi-state does now is it puts more of an onus on the players. We get to see Laniah Davis and Marissa and all of the Lafayette Central Catholic kids, and we get to see them make plays and dictate the outcome of the semi-state, which I think for the people that are against the 2-game semi-state, I think is a very charming aspect to the semi-state is it puts less on film study and implementation during the week and more on the players.
Yeah, and I mean, she said it though. Like Katie said, as coaches, they're already starting to peek ahead a little bit because they have to. And I think, honestly, whenever we ask that the coaches how they're handling it, I just always kind of think that's kind of assumed whether they admit it or not. Like maybe it's not them personally who's doing it, but they have like an assistant coach or a grad student or something.
Yeah,
grad student. What the hell? An assistant coach, somebody digging into it. So they have that game plan and that 20-page scout ready to go. Especially when you're playing a team like South Knox, you're playing a team like Borden, Marquette Catholic, Lafayette Central Catholic. Like pick a team there. Just like you have to, right? It'd be almost irresponsible not to. But I also understand with the players, like you have to maintain that one game at a time. Because let's take Northeast Dubois for a second. Like if they look ahead just a little, suddenly Cinderella's coming up and they're taking them out. APA being Cinderella there, and obviously that ruins everything.
Well, and I think a closing thought on Class A and 2A is that these are it's more, there's bigger favorites. I think we'll go ahead and say that, right?
Yeah.
South Knox in 2A, and of course Marquette Catholic and Borden in Class A. So I think the question is who could trip up and how that kind of throws a monkey wrench in it. But the game that I'm going to have an eye on with a little bit more interest outside of the chalky teams will be that it's escaping me right now, the Rensselaer Central-Sheridan game. For whatever reason, it just fascinates me so much. And I'm sure it's geography bias because of my familiarity with Kenzie Garner and my familiarity with Jacqueline Hosier. But I saw how Rensselaer Central I mean, they didn't do anything. They just took care of the ball. Like, they were the best versions of themselves. And I'm fascinated as you advance and the teams presumably get better. I'm wondering if that's going to catch up to them, and if it does, Kenzie Garner will have gotten them per se. So I think that one is really interesting. But I really like Rensselaer Central. I mean, I really like them.
I do too, and in Class A too. By the way, in the North, just because it's interesting to me, Lafayette Central Catholic kind of seems to get overlooked.
Absolutely.
Obviously, even just now, like, I'm not taking a shot or trying to be a jerk or anything, but even just now, like you say, the favorites are Marquette Catholic and Borden. If it's a foregone conclusion, they're going to Gamebridge. Lafayette Central Catholic is going to be a really, really difficult out. And it's interesting to me because you're not the only one who's done this. I've heard it and seen it elsewhere too, where just people kind of forget that LCC's there. They're rated number 1 in the Sagarin. They've played a really tough schedule. They're just north of Indy area. They play all those big teams up there in the Lafayette area. They're a battle-tested team, and they're old. They're old like Marquette Catholic is old in terms of experience. So that's going to be a really phenomenal semi-state final there. Borden, and then if it is Northeast Dubois who comes through, that'll be interesting. But Borden, they have so many pieces. They're a difficult team to match up with. South Knox, I don't know. I mean, we've said it so many different ways, and it's no disrespect to Brownstown Central or Heritage Christian or anybody else. I think Park Heritage on there too, right? Like, they're all phenomenal teams. South Knox is just in another stratosphere, and I think beating them is going to require you to have the best game of your season, and for them to make some mistakes. Honestly, like gosh, Danny, we saw them against Homestead and HSE. They're within 12 of HSE. They favorite in 4A, and they went down. They were right in it with Homestead, which was a sectional champion, and with the better draw, better night against HSE, could be a regional champion themselves. So, and also as Maya Epps, who just committed to Louisville, my God, like, that isn't a 2A team, and we've said that ad nauseum, but it's so true. Like, that isn't a 2A team, man. That's a 3A borderline 4A team. You stick them in 3A, and you're talking about them still as a state contender, which is pretty remarkable.
And it's not just the battle testing that you got in playing HSE and Homestead. It's also the format. We talked about it when the Hall of Fame was there. So now, remember when we were talking, you were doing some media, and I was getting ready to go get something to eat, and they were out there talking about the next game and going over the scout. So now they have their format of implementing scout in between basketball games. I mean, that experience they will fall back on, and it extends beyond just the battle testing of who they've played. I think that's going to be a big thing, because I think if South Knox does get tripped up, I think it will be in the state championship or will be in the morning game. I think it will be very difficult for them to lose a game with minimal scouts, because if what I said is true, and it's going to be more about the players and less about scout and coaching, they're loaded.
Yeah, and
tip the tail loaded with players.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up the Hall of Fame Classic, because they were out there and they were running stuff. The Hall of Fame Classic, like, Holly, friend of the show, had them out there, and she was going through stuff, and we talked about it after the game, and it was like, I just had some things we wanted to work on, some things we wanted to get ready for homes. And it's like, oh my God. And then too, we talked about this on the 3A 4A podcast, but the timing of these games is so important, and the fact that South Knox gets the first semifinal is just such a massive advantage, and puts the other team in an even deeper hole. Less time to scout, less time to prepare, and most importantly of all, less time to rest. So your best hope is that whoever comes out of the Brownstown Central Heritage Christian game can get up by 40 at halftime and rest your starters and just start looking ahead, because, my God, you're going to need all hands on deck. You're going to need to be at 100% in order to take out a team like South Knox.
Great point. Yep.
So we've covered llamas on this podcast. We've learned how to pronounce Dubois. We've not learned what Jeeps are from. This is a very successful podcast. I'm proud of us.
I'm proud of you. Listen, I'm going to say this, okay? So talking to the audience, I'm going to talk about Hank like he's not here, okay? But the work that he has put forth in the 3A preview for both the regionals and the semi-state and the Class A and 2A, I mean, he's not just turning on a camera and having guests. Like, this show is blocked. I mean, it is unbelievable. And I get it just like everybody else. He just sends it to me. It's like, here are our guests. And I'm like, you're kidding me that we have like all of these people. And so Hank, I think what you've done, I got a text about it today from a friend that was like, Hank, what Hank is doing with the podcast has been outstanding. I guess my hope is this, right? I guess my hope is that people would listen to this stuff to be a little bit more educated in going to these sites, right? If you're going to go to games and support these girls, it's certainly a better product when there's a foundation of education, a foundation of knowledge that you would have. And that's provided by Hank. What you've done with these couple of shows has been great, man. So I think I speak on behalf of the entire girls basketball audience, man. Thank you for the work that you've put forth, because I know it's not easy. I appreciate that, brother. And honestly, it's really not that hard. The hardest part is finding the people's email sometimes and getting in touch. But no, I mean, working with you and Courtney has been so much fun. And two, we should thank the listeners, because I mean, honestly, if the regional stuff had not done as well as it did, we would, and the sectional stuff too, like we wouldn't have done this. Like we would have just done, it would have been the three of us talking, and maybe had a couple people on, and then we just shipped it. But the support that we've received has been so overwhelming, and it's so cool as somebody who's around girls basketball a lot, and I speak for Danny with this too. I mean, just the support has been unbelievable, and it makes it enjoyable to do this stuff, and it's fun too. I mean, we would have no reason to talk to coaches in Dubois or Whitko or pick some of these small towns that we're talking about, and it's been really fun. But I appreciate the kind words, buddy, and it's been fun. I've learned a lot too, and it's going to make my viewing experience for sure a lot more enjoyable. That's what we got for the A and 2A semi-state. I'm going to be up in Frankton for Frankfurt, and that's the home of the Frankfurt hot dogs, right? I'm so excited. I'm going to be up there for the 4A in the morning, though. I'm going to be in Logansport. Okay. And you know that's where Blue Chips was filmed, right? That's what I've been told. Yes. Okay. I'm excited. And there will be people that will come out of the woodwork and be like, I'm in that Blue Chip scene, or my brother's in that Blue Chip scene. I mean, there's tons of people. Because they had the stands filled and all that, right? Yeah. And in the only regional that I have that I was ever a part of was at Case Arena as well. And missed a D1 player, like, just missed a free throw. Like, so it's a story building for me too. So that's probably where I will be. I would suspect for both 10 a.m., 12 a.m. and 8, regardless of the combination. Yeah, more relevant to this podcast, I will be in Logansport. I'll be there for Eastside Whitko in the morning, and then Sheridan versus Rensselaer Central. I'll have a story from that game. I might do something too on Whitko, just because I mean that was such a fun interview. That was Berry Bowl. That's the Berry Bowl. Yeah, I'll tell you a story about the Berry Bowl. Mm-hmm. So the Berry Bowl, that was the site that Ashlyn Shade had to go through en route to her state championship. And in that basketball game, Donna played a 1-box against Jessica Carruthers. There was a face guard against Shade in that game, and they left some little point guard open in the corner for her open three, and her name happened to be Reagan Wilson, and turned into one of the biggest brands on the north side in any girls high school basketball. That happened at the Berry Bowl just four short years ago. That was the one game during that run that I didn't cover, because obviously with Ashlyn there, we swarmed the zone. It was my first year here. That was the one game that I missed because they beat Crown Point early in the year. So I went down south to cover one Josh Sable and his Franklin Grizzly Cubs against Mooresville, the Cinderella that year. So it's funny how all that stuff works, man. But thank you all again so much for watching. We'll talk with you Sunday. We'll have state champions by then. Unless Danny wants to do a live show between games, I'm going to let him do that by himself. Zero chance. I'm going to find the one restaurant in Frankfurt and order everything. That'll be enough. But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back with you guys on Sunday.